LoveLore Library. Chapter 286. After Lu Jun's many days of running around, the Lu Corporation had temporarily gotten through the crisis. Madame Lu's condition had finally stabilized too. The entertainment reporters still didn't let Lu Jun go. Everyone was asking about his relationship with Yi Lu. Yi Lu. Lu Jun avoided answering all questions about Yi Lu. The two had been talking on the phone for the past few days, but they had been arguing. They couldn't calm down and have a good talk. Maybe this was what they meant by "a man proposes, God disposes." Originally, Su Wan and Su Rui planned on asking Li Wei to take a few photos of Yi Xiaochuan visiting Lu Jun while he was busy. Then they would hype it up and disturb Lu Jun's thoughts and vision. Who knew that Yi Xiaochuan would be in the middle of a landslide when he went to visit her? Although Second Master Yi was the weakest in his family, he was trained. He saved Yi Qing in a matter of seconds. Because of this, Yi Lu and Yi Xiaochuan became good friends. Of course, they were just good friends. After the scandal between the two came out, Yi Lu immediately called Lu Jun to explain, but it was clear that Lu Jun didn't believe her at all. When two people were together, trust was the most basic existence. If two people didn't even have the most basic trust between them, then how could they talk about being together forever? How could they have a future? In reality, Lu Jun did lack trust towards Yi Lu. Ever since he had been reborn, he had become overly suspicious. He didn't dare to trust anyone. Especially anyone related to Yi Xiaochuan. They would remind Lu Jun of his unbearable past life. Could he trust Yi Lu? Yi Lu was also an actress. What if she was someone Yi Xiaochuan arranged to be by his side like Su Wan in his past life? Needless to say, Lu Jun was too obsessed with his past life. This made him overly suspicious and unreasonable. In the end, Yi Lu posted on Weibo, saying that she and Yi Xiaochuan were just good friends and that she had broken up with Lu Jun. At that time, the film crew was halfway through filming. Yi Lu originally wanted to leave, but the director saw her hard work and potential, so she stayed. After the incident, Lu Jun's company received a 9-digit remittance from Yi Xiaochuan's personal account. That's right. Yi family's young masters never cared about money when chasing after girls. Although Second Master Yi never caught up to Yi Lu. A year later, Yi Lu, who had risen to prominence in the film and television industry, was invited to attend the new film award ceremony. At the ceremony this time, she met Su Wan. Although the two often appeared on the same page for more than a year, they actually hadn't seen each other for a long time. Sister Wan, congratulations. Tonight's movie Empress is definitely yours. Right now, Yi Qing was no longer immature. She gradually had the demeanor of an elder sister. Thank you for your auspicious words. If I can win another award, it will be the last one in my career. Su Wan couldn't help but smile brightly at Yi Lu. Don't tell me you're withdrawing. Yi Lu looked a bit shocked. Then she thought of Third Master Ye's Weibo post from a year ago. She couldn't help but reveal an envious expression. Sister Wan, you're the luckiest woman in the world. I think so too. Su Wan smiled mysteriously at Yi Lu and leaned against her. As long as you're willing, you can be as happy as me. Women are born to be spoiled by men. Yi family's men are definitely reliable. Yi Lu was speechless. In this year, Yi Xiaochuan had been chasing after Yi Lu. Plus, he showed Yi Lu the scars on his body. Apparently, he didn't complete his grandfather's task of finding a girlfriend last year. In the end, he was cruelly punished. Yi Lu gradually felt Yi Xiaochuan's sincerity towards her. Although he was a playboy in the past, he had restrained himself quite a bit. Yi Lu's heart wavered a bit, but after Lu Jun's incident, she instinctively feared aristocratic families. She didn't dare to try again, at the awards ceremony, Su-won received the award as everyone expected. What surprised everyone was that the guest giving Su-won the award was Third Master Yi. Many people immediately thought of the post Third Master Yi posted on Su-won's Weibo on her birthday. When you stand at the peak of your career, I will personally give you the crown. Su-won, this is the glory that belongs to you. He personally put the crown on Su-won's head and then knelt on one knee. In front of countless guests and cameras, he took out the diamond ring he prepared a long time ago. Marry me. Be together. Be together. Marry him. Marry him. The entire award ceremony was filled with cheers. Su-won smiled and took the diamond ring from Su-rui's hand. Countless flashes turned their blissful smiles into an eternal moment. 2 months later, Su-won and Su-rui got married. After the wedding, Su-won held a press conference to officially announce her retirement from the entertainment industry. After Su-won left the entertainment industry, Yi-lu left her original company and signed with Yi Entertainment after Su-won's persuasion. Right now, Su-rui also returned the power of Yi Entertainment to Yi Xiaochuan. Yi Entertainment's employees lamented that they finally escaped from the Third Master's clutches and ended their bitter days of having to shout, "Yi Xiaoling loves Su-won" 3 times a day. What they didn't know was that they were about to be tortured by Second Master Yi, who was even better at showing off his love than Third Master. The Third Master returned with a beauty in his arms, so it was understandable for him to show off his love. But what about Second Master? He hadn't even caught up with her yet. Wasn't he trying to trick people? After Su-won and Su-rui got married, the two of them started their sweet journey around the world. Every day, Su-rui would record the places they went and post them on Weibo. Now, the two of them had more than 10 million fans on Weibo. That's right. Everyone came to watch them show off their love. Tricked. He was dumped. Cheated on. No matter how hurt you were, as long as you strolled around the Third Master's territory, you'd definitely be revived. The world was so big and there were so many scumbags. Being dumped was a happy thing because you deserved better. There would always be a man in the world waiting for you, waiting to spoil you. Su-rui and Su-won were sunbathing on an island when they received Yi Xiaochuan and Yi-lu's wedding news. After hanging up, Su-won received the notification that the mission was successful. But she and Su-rui didn't choose to leave the mission world right away. The two booked plane tickets to return to China to attend Yi Xiaochuan's wedding. Old Master Yi was grinning from ear to ear when he found out that the two were getting married because of Yi-lu's pregnancy. Out of consideration for Yi-lu's health, the two's wedding was luxurious and low-key. This wedding was also widely reported by the media. Lu Jun naturally received the news too. Because Lu family's business hadn't been going well these past 2 years, Madame Lu arranged a blind date for Lu Jun's business partner's daughter. The two had just confirmed their relationship. Lu Jun didn't like the girl from a noble family, but he didn't hate her either. Occasionally, he would dream of his past life when he woke up at night. He dreamed of the hardships and simple yet sweet moments when he was with Yi-lu. Unfortunately, it was all a dream. It was just a dream. But was it really a dream? When Lu Jun met Su-won again and saw the bright smile on her face, he felt like he was in a different world. "How are you doing right now?" Su-won walked in front of Lu Jun, still wearing a charming smile. "Compared to your past life, do you like your current life more? At least, you don't have nothing." What are you saying?" Lu Jun's expression changed hearing Su-won's words. He looked at her in disbelief. "You know what I'm saying. It's a pity. Yi-lu loves you so much, but you can't give her happiness. Now, I found a better one for her. Don't thank me." Su-won said this while inching closer to Lu Jun's face. "Lu Jun, you're a coward. So what if the heavens gave you a chance to be reborn? You don't even dare to believe in your lover. You deserve to lose Yi Lu. Su Wan smiled in satisfaction while Lu Jun was in a daze. She turned to leave. Sometimes, the heavens gave us a chance to treasure the people and things around us and make up for the mistakes we made in the past. It wasn't for you to take this chance to disturb other people's lives. Returning to Su Wan's car, Su Wan closed her eyes and leaned against the seat. She could leave now. Even if Lu Jun regretted it now, he couldn't get Yi Lu back. Everyone's heart was actually very small, so small that it could only contain one person. Chapter 287. Wuanfeng Country, east of the Imperial City, Princess Royal Residence. It was April, and the spring sunshine was bright and beautiful. When Bai Lu walked into the warm room, her mistress was resting on a soft couch. Your Highness. Bai Lu gently walked to the couch and called out in a low voice. The woman wearing a luxurious red phoenix robe slowly opened her eyes. Her phoenix eyes were filled with an unparalleled sharpness. Your Highness, just as you expected. Her Majesty really went to the Feng family to mourn. Right now, Hong Shuang is guarding the Feng residence with a group of Imperial guards. Ha! Su Wan stood up and waved her long sleeves. She sneered and said, back then, when the Empress was still alive, I wanted her to marry Feng Wuxuang into the palace but she refused. Now that he's dead, she went to mourn. She's just doing it for the Feng family's mistress and Feng family's military officer. Your Highness is wise. No matter how Her Majesty shows goodwill to the Feng family's military officer and Madame Feng are on your side. Saying this, Bai Lu's gaze flickered. Your Highness, you've really decided on Master Yu. Hearing Bai Lu mention Yu Qing, a cold glint flickered in Su Wan's eyes. Bai Lu, you know how I've treated him all these years. Yet, he betrayed me for that slut, Su Man. Everyone who betrays me must die. He, Yu Qing, is no exception. Wanting me, Su Wan, to be lenient on him is simply a fool's dream. Feeling the coldness exuding from Su Wan, Bai Lu immediately lowered her head respectfully. This servant understands what to do. Amen. You may leave. Su Wan waved her sleeves and Bai Lu immediately left respectfully. When she was the only one left in the warm room, Su Wan's gaze turned complicated. How did Feng Wuxuang die? What happened to being the first supporting male? Wuanfeng Country was a world where women ruled supreme. Of course, although this country was ruled by an empress and women had a high status, the men in the country lived normal lives. They could marry, take the imperial examinations, and even enter the imperial court to become officials. This was the result of the previous emperor's reform. Ever since the late emperor implemented the new law that men and women were equal, Wuanfeng Country implemented the male imperial examination system. Until now, 1/3 of the officials in the imperial court were male. There were even 2 male officials who held great power in the imperial court. Left Minister, Lu Xian. Grand Commandant, Feng Wuchen. Feng Wuchen was Feng Wuxuang's older brother. The Feng clan had been loyal to the imperial family for generations. Madame Feng and the previous emperor were sworn sisters. When the previous emperor was still in power, he had always wanted to match his youngest daughter with the second young master of the Feng clan. Unfortunately, King Xiang had a dream and the goddess was not interested. In the end, the marriage between the two did not go through. Even so, Feng Wuxuang, who had always been weak and sickly, still deeply loved Sumin. Sumin, the Empress of Wuanfeng Country and also the first female lead in this world. She was born with a golden spoon in her mouth and was designated as the heir to the throne. 2 years ago, the previous emperor suddenly passed away and Sumin ascended the throne. She had just ascended the throne. Because she was still young, many old officials in the imperial court didn't care about her. Thankfully, the right minister, Qi Shu Yuan, and Grand Commandant, Feng Wuchen, protected her, allowing her to safely get through the most turbulent period. Now, the imperial court had just stabilized and Suman had just taken in a male concubine. Everything seemed calm, but in reality, there were surging undercurrents and a storm was about to come. Su Wan's identity in this world was Suman's older sister, the Princess Royal of Wanfeng country. Although the two had the same mother, their fathers were different. Su Wan's father was only the former emperor's male attendant and had a low status. Therefore, Su Wan wasn't favored in the imperial city since she was young. After she grew up, the former emperor didn't like her either. But Suman was completely different. She was the product of love between the former emperor and the man she loved the most. Ever since she was young, almost all of the best things in the imperial city belonged to her. Not only did this little princess who lived in a honeypot inherit the throne, but there were also countless men who loved her wholeheartedly and followed her. In the original plot, Suman had 3 husbands and 4 maids. These 7 men were all outstanding and incomparably handsome. Yu Qing was one of the 7 men. Yu Qing, who was born in a poor family, lived up to his name. His appearance was as bright as the moon and his temperament was elegant and otherworldly. He was famous in the capital as a jade-like gentleman. Even noble ladies were impressed by his talent and treated him with respect when they saw him. In the past, Yu Qing was the zither master in Su Wan's residence. The two would often play the zither together in the resident's small residence. Slowly and naturally, they developed different feelings for each other. However, Su Wan was an ambitious woman. She wasn't willing to wallow in love. What she wanted was the entire empire. After discovering that Suman also admired Yu Qing's zither skills, Su Wan took the initiative to recommend Yu Qing to the palace and let him teach Suman how to play the zither. In reality, Su Wan wanted Yu Qing to monitor and get close to Suman for her. In the beginning, Yu Qing was indeed on the same side as Su Wan. He would often tell Su Wan about Suman's movements. But slowly, Yu Qing was attracted to the young but incomparably intelligent Suman and he truly fell in love with her. After Yu Qing understood his true feelings, he confessed everything to Suman. Su Man had found out about Su Wan's ambition from the brocade pouch the former emperor left behind. She didn't blame Yu Qing. Instead, she told him to play along and monitor Su Wan for her. Just like this, Su Man knew a lot of Su Wan's actions in advance. This caused her plans to disrupt the imperial court several times to fail. Her repeated failures aroused Su Wan's vigilance. She told her confidant, Bai Lu, to investigate this matter. In the end, she found out that Yu Qing betrayed her. Su Wan lost her mind after being betrayed by the man she loved. She didn't hesitate to use the imperial family's secret guards to kill Yu Qing. Unfortunately, Yu Qing was protected by Suman's people. Since she couldn't kill Yu Qing, Su Wan gathered her direct subordinates in the capital in advance, preparing to rebel during the 5th month of every year when Her Majesty worships the ancestors. Of course, as a cannon fodder, Su Wan's rebellion naturally wouldn't succeed. She already had Suman's spy among her people. That person leaked the news in advance and her plan to force Yu Qing to abdicate failed. Since ancient times, the winner was the king and the loser was the villain. Even though Suman only put Su Wan under house arrest because of their sisterhood, the proud and arrogant Su Wan couldn't accept her failure. In the end, she committed suicide in the imperial city. This was the main plot and fate of the original body in this world that Su Wan received. According to the original plot, it was the beginning of the 4th month now. The original body had just learned of Yu Qing's betrayal. Though she knew that she couldn't kill Yu Qing, Su Wan still told Bai Lu to order people to do it. After all, this was a good chance to confuse the other party. Su Wan wasn't worried about fighting with Suman at all. What she was worried about the most was that she couldn't find Su Rue. According to her estimations, the first male supporting lead in this world should be Feng Wuxiang. However, on the first day Su Wan entered the mission world, she received news that Feng Wuxiang passed away due to illness. This really shocked Su Wan. Because in the original plot, Feng Wuxiang would only pass away a few years later. Because of his existence, the Feng family always stood on the same side as Suman. Now that Feng Wuxiang passed away, the Feng family immediately changed their target and prepared to cooperate with Su Wan. Could it be that this world also had people who had been reborn or transmigrators? Chapter 288. Feng Wuxiang's death made the entire Feng family gloomy. When Su Wan came to the Feng family in her casual clothes, the morning hall had already been removed but the military officer's residence was still covered in white silk. Princess Royal. Madame Feng naturally came out to welcome Su Wan personally. Aunt Feng, my condolences. Su Wan gently held Madame Feng's hands. I know you guys are sad about Wuxiang's death, but Wuxiang has always been an innocent and kind child. I think that if his spirit is still in heaven, he would hope that you and Wuchen can be happy. Sigh. My poor son. Madame Feng sighed again hearing Su Wan's comforting words. She was born in an illustrious family. Though she didn't have a daughter, her two sons had been Madame Feng's favorites since they were young. Feng Wuchen had great ambitions since he was young. It just so happened that the late emperor implemented the new law. Feng Wuchen was one of the first men to enter the court and become an official. As for Feng Wuxiang, because of his weak body, he had been recuperating in the residence. Feng Wuxiang was a decent person but unfortunately, he was too weak. Maybe this was why Su Man didn't like him. Though Su Man was an empress, she didn't like men who were too weak. Her man either had to be talented like Yu Qing or he had to be a hero with peerless martial arts like General Lu Chang'e. This was probably the so-called alliance of the strong. Princess Royal, you're here. At this time, Feng Wuchen's voice rang from behind Su Wan. Su Wan immediately turned around. Seeing Feng Wuchen's calm but cold face, disappointment flashed through her eyes. Not Su Wan. Feng Wuchen was a supporting male character with a lot of scenes in this world. He just didn't have any emotional scenes with the female lead. Military Officer Feng, I need to talk to you. Emin. Your Highness, please follow me to the study. Feng Wuchen gestured for Su Wan to follow him to the Feng family study. Military Officer Feng, have you really thought it through this time? The moment she entered the study, Su Wan's aura changed. Her expression turned serious and cold. Your Highness, do you think I'm joking with you? Wuxiang passed away early because he was depressed. It was all His Majesty's fault. His Majesty was able to marry the second young master of the Lu clan as his imperial husband, and was able to be a couple with that young master Yu. Why was he unwilling to accept Wuxiang? What did Wuxiang do wrong? If I hadn't heard the news of His Majesty's marriage, I would not have been so excited. At this point, Feng Wuchen was already choking up. From what Su Wan knew, Feng Wuchen had always been known as the iron-blooded military officer. She didn't expect him to have such a deep relationship with his brother. Great military officer Feng, I can understand your feelings. Since you've already decided to form an alliance with me, I naturally believe in your character. Saying this, Su Wan couldn't help but smile faintly. Wuchen, Qi Shuiyuan is your cousin. I know that she has always been thinking about you. Do you have the confidence to convince her to support me? Qi Shuiyuan was the right minister of the current dynasty. She had power in the court and was Suman's right-hand man. Hearing Su Wan's words, Feng Wuchen's gaze darkened. I'm afraid I can't. Xu Yuan and Her Majesty have a deep relationship. I'm afraid she won't change her stance. Plus, it's not appropriate for me to tell her about this. Please forgive me, Princess Royal. Emin, I understand. There's no rush. There's really no rush. Su Wan smiled comfortingly at Feng Wuchen. I can't stay here for long either. That's all for today. If anything happens in the future, I will have Bai Lu send someone to inform you. Yes. Feng Wuchen respectfully sent Su Wan off. Seeing Su Wan's carriage leave the Feng residence's back door, Feng Wuchen looked at the pitch-black sky and a cold glint flickered in his eyes. Wu Shuang, brother will get justice for you. I definitely will. It wasn't far from the Feng residence to the Princess Royal residence in the east of the Imperial City. But Su Wan's carriage took advantage of the darkness and circled around the street twice before heading to the north of the capital. There was an extremely large residence on a certain street in the north of the capital. The walls of the residence were all black, blending in with the night. This residence looked really mysterious and strange. The residents nearby didn't dare to approach this place. Apparently, a night watchman had once passed by this place in the middle of the night and saw many headless and legless ghosts walking in and out of the courtyard. That's right. This was the most famous haunted residence in the north of the city. In reality, this was a stronghold of Su Wan's imperial family's secret guards in the capital. Your Highness. Su Wan got off the carriage and Bai Lu immediately scuttled out of the courtyard. Right now, she had changed into a tight-fitting black outfit. She looked really cold and dangerous. Your Highness, I'm useless. I actually let Yu Qing escape. Right now, he's in the minister's residence. It's not good for me to send people after him. Bai Lu said this while kneeling on one knee. Your Highness, please punish me. Su Wan glanced at Bai Lu on the ground. Forget it. Su Man was prepared. I don't blame you. She and Lu Luo really schemed well. They actually hid Yu Qing in Lu Xian's residence. Lu Xian was the minister's He was a first-rank official just like Feng Wuchen. Plus, Lu Xian's younger brother, Lu Luo, was Su Man's husband. Because of this, Lu family was naturally Su Man's direct descendant. What should she say about Lu Xian? According to the original plot, he was a hidden boss. However, he wasn't an evil person. He was just an ambitious man who wanted to overthrow women's rights and establish a patriarchal empire. From what Su Wan knew, after the original body was used as cannon fodder, Su Man lived a blissful life with her men. At this time, Lu Xian's plot started to gradually reveal itself. Lu Xian. Su Wan muttered this name. He was someone she could fight for and form an alliance with. Bai Lu, get up. Where's the other thing I told you to do? Su Wan asked while walking into the residence. I've brought him back. Bai Lu had already stood up and followed behind Su Wan obediently. Your Highness wants. Bai Lu made a beheading gesture. Su Wan smiled faintly and shook her head. Take me to see him. At the same time, inside the Imperial City's Imperial Study. Su Man wore a bright yellow dragon robe and sat on a chair. A cultured and refined man stood respectfully in front of the desk. This man was the minister's Lu Xian. Lu Xian, is Yu Qing safe? Su Man looked at Lu Xian's face and asked anxiously. Master Yu is in my residence. Of course he's safe. Lu Xian smiled confidently. Although he was a civil official, he had studied Qimen Duanjia and Plum Blossom divination since he was young. Lu Xian had set up layers of traps in the entire Lu residence. Even Bai Lu, who was the most skilled in martial arts under the Princess Royal, couldn't find Yu Qing in the Lu residence. That's good. Su Man relaxed after getting Lu Xian's confirmation. Imperial sister has always been ruthless. If she finds Yu Qing, he'll definitely be in trouble. I really have to thank you, Minister Lu. Because Yu Qing had no status in the Imperial Palace and Su Man didn't know if there were any spies in the Imperial City, she didn't dare to keep Yu Qing in the Imperial City. Compared to the Imperial City, the Lu residence was much safer and more reliable. It's my duty to share Her Majesty's worries. Without saying a word, she whipped her son violently. I'll beat you to death, you troublemaker. Are you trying to anger me to death? Ah! Master Lu, who was in the middle of a beautiful dream, immediately woke up from his mother's beating. He screamed and jumped up from his bed. Mother, what are you doing? Are you trying to kill your own son? Scram! I don't have a son like you. Madame Lu glared at him coldly. Her tone was full of disappointment. Look at Lu family's Lu Xian and Feng family's Feng Wuqian. The three of you grew up together and both of them are pin 1 in the imperial court. What about you? I finally managed to transfer you to the godly machine camp to be a military officer, but you keep causing trouble for me. That's fine, but why did you go and provoke the Princess Royal? Do you really think that your life is too long? Ah! Hearing his mother's words, Lu Xiaoxiao's gaze flickered. Mother, Su Wan, no, I'm talking about the Princess Royal. What did she do? Why don't you ask yourself what you did first? Last night, the Princess Royal Residence's people threw a male servant's corpse in front of our Lu family's door. There were even people guarding the corpse so that no one could take it away. This morning, Yunju told me that the dead male attendant was bought by you and sent to the princess residence. Tell me, you naughty brat, are you looking for a beating for no reason? Madame Lu looked at her son, so angry she didn't know what to say. Who was the Princess Royal? She was famous for being ruthless. Why didn't her son grow up? Hearing his mother's words, Lu Xiaoxiao smiled carelessly. Mother, I heard that Yu Qing defected to Her Majesty. All the nobles in the capital know about this. Isn't Su Wan really virtuous? Back then, she looked down on me. Now that her lover ran away with someone else, I'm doing a good deed and buying a handsome male servant to relieve her boredom. I'm being kind. She doesn't know what's good for her. Presumptuous. Do you think you can criticize the Princess Royal? Madame Lu's expression was a bit complicated hearing her son's words. Xiao, tell me the truth. Do you still miss the Princess Royal? No. Definitely not. Lu Xiaoxiao widened his eyes hearing his mother's words and replied with a determined expression, there are many good women in the world. With our Lu family status, I can marry anyone I want. Why do I have to marry someone from the royal family? I, Lu Xiaoxiao, can't afford to lose face like that. Ever since the late emperor's new law was implemented throughout the country, men's status had indeed increased. Although there were no precedents of noble ladies marrying men, it was common for men and women to marry each other. Seeing how confident Lu Xiaoxiao was, Madame Lu relaxed. Lu family was a hereditary noble family in Wanfeng country. Although Madame Lu didn't need to attend court, she still had a hereditary title. She understood the trend in court. In the past 2 years, Her Majesty had gradually grasped the initiative. Especially with the marriage alliance between Her Majesty and Lu family, she had Xiang Lu's help. The Princess Royal's chances of winning weren't high. At this moment, Madame Lu secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, when the previous emperor proposed marriage to the eldest princess rejected the marriage without hesitation. If the marriage had gone through, the future of the Lu family would be hard to predict. Perhaps this was a blessing in disguise, there were no secrets in the capital circle. What happened in front of the Lu residence in the morning had already spread throughout the court during the morning court session. Everyone couldn't help but sigh. That young Master Lu really didn't make any progress as usual. Everyone knew that the Princess Royal was in a fit of anger. Yet, he still dared to provoke her. He really wasn't afraid of death. When the court session ended, Su Wan walked at the very front. No one dared to surpass her. When she reached Beihua Gate, Su Wan suddenly stopped in her tracks. The officials behind her looked at her in confusion. Under the morning sun, Su Wan looked especially bright and flamboyant, wearing a fiery red official robe. Xiang Lu. Su Wan's gaze swept over the crowd and then landed on Lu Xian. Princess Royal. Seeing that Su Wan called his name, Lu Xian, who was walking with a group of male officials, couldn't help but take a few steps forward. He looked at Su Wan respectfully and asked, "Princess Royal, what are your orders?" "I heard that Her Majesty rewarded Xiang Lu with a decent box of tribute tea. I wonder if I have the honor to ask for a cup of tea from your residence?" Su Wan looked at Lu Xian with a smile. Though she was asking him, her tone was high and mighty and couldn't be refuted. Lu Xian's expression froze hearing her words. Then he smiled faintly and said, "Princess Royal, you still remember? That's just an ignorant child spouting nonsense." The Lu family was a famous family in Jingdu. Lu Xian and Lu Luo had been hanging out with a group of nobles since they were young. Back then, Lu Xian, who couldn't practice martial arts, didn't have much of a presence. However, he had been very ambitious since he was young. This could be seen from the fact that he had been secretly studying the art of war and formations. Ever since he was young, he had been very ambitious. But now, Lu Xian had learned how to perfectly hide his ambitions and aspirations. As for Su Wan's words just now, it was just a subtle probe. Under the guidance of the butler, the two of them arrived at the attic of the Lu residence. This was Lu Xian's private resting place and the only place that was absolutely safe in the Lu residence. As for the other places, such as the backyard, the garden, and the study, they all had traps and matrices. Normal people wouldn't be able to enter easily. Even if they were lucky enough to enter, they wouldn't be able to get out. That's right. It was that powerful. Therefore, the Lu residence was more troublesome than the imperial city. With these layers of mechanisms, Lu Xian could peacefully carry out his plan to overthrow the imperial court in his own home. Tea before the rain. Princess Royal, please enjoy. Lu Xian was really skilled at making tea. Su Wan's gaze landed on Lu Xian's hands as she watched him smoothly make tea for her. Princess Royal. Noticing Su Wan's gaze, Lu Xian froze and subconsciously called her again. "Oh." Su Wan snapped out of her trance and smiled awkwardly. "I didn't expect Prime Minister Lu to be so good at making tea. Even the way he makes tea is special. I'm stunned. This is, practice makes perfect." Hearing Su Wan's words, Lu Xian's gentle face quickly darkened. They were both sons, but because he couldn't practice martial arts, his mother found many teachers to teach him the four arts, as well as the art of making tea. Back then, his mother had been planning on sending him to the palace, right? Unfortunately, things didn't turn out as he wished. Man proposes, God disposes. The former emperor changed the system and he actually entered the court to become an official with his outstanding literary talent. However, his brother, who was skilled in both literature and martial arts, was willing to enter the palace to serve Her Majesty for the sake of love. Lu Xian didn't dare to agree with Lu Luo's choice. Regarding marriage, Lu Xian had always insisted that a man and a woman should marry each other. Plus, they had to be in love with each other. He thought that if they were in love with each other, even noble ladies would be willing to marry him. Otherwise, what was the point of talking about love? While Lu Xian was deep in thought, Su Wan elegantly took a sip of tea. Prime Minister Lu, this tea is really nice. Actually, I have some nice tea leaves in my residence too. Prime Minister Lu, do you want to try? This was Su Wan's second test. Lu Xian's gaze flickered, but he still maintained his gentle and refined appearance. Princess Royal, thank you for your kindness. This official doesn't usually drink tea. If Princess Royal likes it, then take it. Lu Xian didn't directly reject her but tactfully answered Su Wan. Hearing his words, Su Wan's phoenix eyes lifted. A gentleman doesn't take away someone's love. After all, Her Majesty bestowed this tea to you. How can I take away someone's love? This isn't what a gentleman would do. Prime Minister Lu, don't you think so? Seeing the Princess Royal's profound words, Lu Xian could only smile faintly and nod. Princess Royal is right. So, Su Wan slowly stood up. Master, you came from my residence. Since he and Her Majesty love each other, I think I should let them be together. Tomorrow, I will draft a memorial to ask Her Majesty to accept Master Yu. I'm sure Prime Minister Lu will support this right. This, Lu Xian's gaze flickered. He wasn't sure if the Princess Royal was telling the truth or not. Ha! Seeing Lu Xian's hesitation, Su Wan smiled proudly. Everyone thinks that I will harm Yu Qing. There's no need for me to lie in front of Prime Minister Lu. I do want him to die, but since Her Majesty wants to protect him, I can only give up. He's just a traitor. I hate him because he's heartless. Since he likes to share a wife with someone else, I'll let him be. In this life, I want a pair of people for the rest of my life. Yu Qing left me because he didn't have the fortune to do so. A pair, for the rest of my life. Lu Xian froze hearing Su Wan's words. That's right. At this moment, the door to a new world opened for Prime Minister Lu. Chapter 291. A Couple for Life. It wasn't that Lu Xiang wasn't cultured, but Luanfeng country didn't practice monogamy. Therefore, Lu Xian froze hearing Su Wan's words. He was shocked by her words. Oh my, at this moment, Su Wan felt that she was simply possessed by a transmigrator. It was said that as long as a transmigrator showed off her modern culture, there would immediately be a large group of aboriginals who would be shocked and worship under her skirt. Princess Royal, are you planning on only marrying one person in your lifetime? Lu Xian froze and then looked at Su Wan with sparkling eyes. This, a pair of lovers for life, sounded good, but how many people could actually do it? Seeing that Lu Xian only froze for a moment and didn't have much of a reaction, Su Wan sighed inside. As expected, she had to use it on the female lead in order to be effective. Ahem. Su Wan coughed softly and looked at Lu Xian's face. You don't have to marry him. If you can meet someone who truly loves you in this world, so what if you marry him? Marry him. Lu Xian was really shocked this time. Who was Su Wan? She was the Princess Royal who was above everyone else and below only one person. If Luanfeng country's Princess Royal was willing to marry someone else, then what did this mean? Princess Royal, you can, but, what are you afraid of? Su Wan smiled and lifted her phoenix eyes. I, Su Wan, don't need to care about other people's feelings. Lu Xiang, I know Yu Qing is in your residence. Can you let him come out and meet me? I definitely won't make things difficult for him. Seeing that Su Wan finally went around Yu Qing, Lu Xian's expression was a bit troubled. Princess Royal, this. I should listen to your orders, but Her Majesty, okay. It's okay if you don't want to see him. Let me see him from afar, okay? Su Wan impatiently interrupted Lu Xian's words. Her expression was cold. Yes. Princess Royal, this way please. This time, Lu Xian didn't refuse. Instead, he led the way and brought Su Wan to Lu family's backyard. There are traps in this courtyard. Eldest princess, follow this official and don't go the wrong way. Saying this, Lu Xian strode forward. Su Wan naturally followed closely behind him. Not long later, the two came to a small courtyard. Standing under the moon door, Lu Xian stopped. Your Highness, Master Yu is in the courtyard. At this moment, the window of the main room in the courtyard was open. From outside the courtyard, one could see the person in the room from afar. Even from afar, one could feel the elegance and grace of that person, just like a banished immortal. Su Wan quietly glanced at Yu Qing. Still not Su Rui. After coming to this world for a few days, Su Wan summarized the plot here. The main characters of this world were all gathered in the capital. Female lead Su Man's 7 men, other than Lu Chang'e who was leading troops at the border, the other 6 were all in the capital. Out of Su Man's 3 husbands and 4 maids, Lu Luo, Lu Chang'e, and Yu Qing were her true loves. As for the other 4 male maids, 2 of them were male maids she grew up with in the imperial palace. The other 2 weren't with Su Man yet. One was Su Man's personal secret guard, Leng Yi. Right now, he was secretly in love with her. The other one was Minister Li's son, Li Xiao. Li Xiao hadn't entered the imperial court as an official yet, so he didn't know the emperor yet. Of course, as the main male lead, Lu Chang'e and Su Man were just in a similar relationship. As for the other male supporting characters like Feng Wuchen, Lu Xian, and the others, Su Wan had seen them before. She didn't see Su Rui. Did Su Rui not come to this world? No, that wasn't right. Su Wan's instincts told her that Su Rui must have come. He was in the same world as her and he should be around her. Could it be, in fact, Su Wan also thought of another possibility. Did something happen to Su Rui when he entered this world? After all, according to Su Rui's mission route, his mission host should be Feng Wuxuang. But Feng Wuxuang suddenly died. Then if Su Rui entered the mission after Feng Wuxuang died, the headquarters logistics department would arrange another identity for him. And this identity might not allow him to use his own appearance. Therefore, everyone could be Su Rui. Thinking of this, Su Wan suddenly chuckled to herself. If that's the case, then why did Su Rui purposely hide? Are you testing me in advance? Thinking of the test Su Rui mentioned last time, Su Wan immediately thought of something. General Su, I'll drag you out. Just you wait. Your Highness. Seeing that Su Wan had been staring at Yu Qing with a faint smile on her lips, Lu Xian couldn't help but call her. It seemed like Princess Royal still had feelings for Yu Qing. Su Wan snapped out of her trance and looked deeply at Lu Xian. I've seen him. Some people are missed. I should head back now. Thank you for your hospitality today. Lu Xian smiled and said, I'm fine. Saying this, Su Wan turned around, wanting to leave a bit anxiously. Right now, she seemed to have forgotten that there were many traps in the Lu residence. Seeing that she was about to touch the trap, Lu Xian immediately shouted in a panic, Your Highness, be careful. Pfft. 2 cold arrows suddenly flew out from the wall at the side and went straight for Su Wan's chest. At this moment, Su Wan seemed to be frightened and did not react at all. At the moment of imminent peril, a black shadow quickly scuttled out and threw Su Wan to the side. A cold light flashed and the 2 arrows were cut into 2 by Lu's sword. Your Highness, are you okay? I'm fine. Su Wan shook her head and then glanced at Lu Xian, who was still in a state of shock. Prime Minister Lu's residence is really full of traps. It's hard to guard against them. I've startled Your Highness. Lu Xian immediately bowed and apologized. Your Highness, please punish me. Forget it. Su Wan waved her hands. Prime Minister Lu, lead the way. Yes. After leaving the Lu residence, Su Wan leaned against the carriage and closed her eyes to rest. Meanwhile, Bai Lu opened her mouth, hesitating. She looked like she wanted to say something but stopped herself. What do you want to say? Su Wan slowly opened her eyes and stared at Bai Lu's face with her slender phoenix eyes. Bai Lu panicked being stared at by Su Wan. Your Highness, this servant is just curious why Your Highness, you're curious why I didn't hide. Actually, the original body in this world knew martial arts. As Luanfeng country's Princess Royal, it wouldn't make sense if she wasn't talented in both literature and martial arts. Su Wan naturally inherited the original body's martial arts after coming to this world. She just didn't use it. Ha! There's a reason why I didn't hide. Right now, Su Wan couldn't use his appearance to recognize Su Rui anymore. Plus, she was in the light while he was in the dark. She could only probe again and again in order to find Su Rui among the crowd. At this time, Su Wan was a bit envious of Su Rui's high perception and mental power. He could recognize anyone he saw just by their aura. But Su Wan. She could only bitterly rely on her own feelings, analysis, and judgment to find him. Chapter 292. On the way back to the princess residence, Su Wan had been resting in the carriage with her eyes closed. Until they passed by a bustling market. Bursts of noise came from outside the carriage, making Su Wan who was in the carriage couldn't help but frown. Bai Lu, what's going on outside? Su Wan slowly opened her eyes, a trace of displeasure flashing through her face. Bai Lu quickly got off the carriage. Not long later, she returned to the carriage with a complicated expression. Your Highness, Master Lu brought his men and got into a conflict with Master Li in Chufeng restaurant. There are quite a lot of people on the streets. The two seem to be fighting. Lu Xiaoxiao and Li Xiao. Su Wan's gaze flickered. Li Xiao was one of the male leads too, but he just appeared a bit later. As for Lu Xiaoxiao, he was connected to her in countless ways. In the original plot, after Su Wan committed suicide, the princess residence naturally declined. Bai Lu and the others were also imprisoned. The empty princess residence was turned into a marquee residence by Su Man. It was originally given to Feng Wuqin, but in the end, Lu Xiaoxiao spent a lot of money to buy it. Lu Xiaoxiao was famous for being a hedonist in the capital. Ordinary people's daughters weren't willing to marry him. Nobles' daughters with high statuses didn't want to marry him either. This caused the Lu family to be unable to marry a young master even if they were willing to pay a huge dowry. Madame Lu wanted to matchmake Lu Xiaoxiao and Su Wan when the former emperor was still on the throne. The former emperor didn't like Su Wan, so he wanted to do her a favor and let Su Wan marry Lu Xiaoxiao, that bastard. But how could Su Wan agree? She brought people to Chufeng restaurant and ridiculed Lu Xiaoxiao, threatening and tempting him. In the end, she ruined the marriage. Maybe the original body didn't know that Lu Xiaoxiao truly liked her. After she died, he didn't mind spending all his assets to buy the princess residence and protect her home. Lu Xiaoxiao, the princess royal, isn't here anymore. What do you need the princess residence for? In the original plot, Feng Wuqin had asked Lu Xiaoxiao this question and Lu Xiaoxiao had replied with a sly smile, if we keep this courtyard, at least there will be people who will remember that a peerless beauty once lived here. If the courtyard was gone, people would gradually forget about her. He didn't want people to forget that Su Wan once existed. This was Lu Xiaoxiao's feelings for the princess royal. You don't have to love me, and I don't have to bother you, but you can't stop me from thinking about you in my heart. Su Wan thought for a moment before sighing in the end. She glanced at Bai Lu Xiaoxiao, that idiot, isn't Li Zhao's match at all. Bai Lu, go and bring Lu Xiaoxiao to me. Tell him that I have something to discuss with him. Yes. Bai Lu got off the carriage again. When she came back, she was still holding Lu Xiaoxiao's collar. At this moment, Lu Xiaoxiao was in a very sorry state. He was born to be a businessman and was neither good at literature nor martial arts. In the capital, he was just a useless hedonist. Get in. Su Wan glanced at Lu Xiaoxiao and muttered coldly. Tisk. Lu Xiaoxiao rolled his eyes and glared fiercely at Bai Lu. Let go. Didn't you hear your master telling me to get on the carriage? Jadefall, why is a useless person like you acting all high and mighty in front of me? Bai Lu gently let go of his hand. Lu Xiaoxiao pretended to tidy up his expensive robe before calmly getting on the carriage. Hello, Princess Royal. He greeted Su Wan weakly. There wasn't any sincerity in his tone at all. Ha! Su Wan sneered and lifted her brows. What? I haven't seen you for a few days and your temper seems to have increased. You even dared to fight with Li Xiao. Who does Li Xiao think he is? Lu Xiaoxiao curled his lips in disdain. I'm a gentleman. A gentleman uses his mouth and not his fists. He's just a barbarian. He doesn't have any manners at all. He's going to lose the face of the capital's aristocrats. Su Wan was speechless. Who gave you the courage to say these words? When Li Xiao knew how to write the 1,000-character classic, you couldn't even write your own name. You want to compete with him in manners. Su Wan had experienced Master Lu's narcissism. In the original plot, Lu Xiaoxiao and Li Xiao did have a grudge against each other in Chufeng restaurant. Later on, the two didn't like each other. Thinking of this, Su Wan's heart suddenly moved. She quietly looked at Lu Xiaoxiao and exclaimed, Lu Xiaoxiao, I haven't settled the score with you for last night. Last night? Lu Xiaoxiao looked at Su Wan in a daze. I slept really early last night. I didn't see you either. You sure know how to pretend to be innocent. It's okay if you can't remember. I'll make you remember. Su Wan smiled faintly and shouted outside, Bai Lu, go find a rope. Hey, hey, hey. Lu Xiaoxiao's expression immediately changed seeing Su Wan ordering Bai Lu to find a rope. Princess Royal, don't do anything rash. Since when did I do anything rash? Su Wan leaned forward and moved her face closer to Lu Xiaoxiao. Ah, your handsome face is about to be beaten into a pig's head by Li Xiao. Say, if I strip you naked and tie you to the roof of the carriage, would your mother still recognize you? Su Wan. Lu Xiaoxiao roared angrily. Hm. Su Wan lifted her brows and smiled at Lu Xiaoxiao. Princess Royal, Your Highness. Lu Xiaoxiao wore a bitter expression and looked pitifully at Su Wan. Look, you're the Princess Royal and I'm just a useless person. You're a great person and you don't mind me. You're a magnanimous person. You can't be this petty, right? Plus, I didn't do anything. I was just joking with you. I was just joking. At this time, Bai Lu returned to the carriage. Your Highness, the rope. You're really taking it. Seeing the thick rope in Bai Lu's hands, Master Lu was speechless. Your Highness. Bai Lu ignored Lu Xiaoxiao and waited for Su Wan's orders with a serious expression. Tie him up for me. Su Wan waved her sleeves and instructed with an indifferent face. Yes. When Bai Lu heard her master's order, her hands flew up and tied Lu Xiaoxiao up like a dumpling in an instant. Lu Xiaoxiao was speechless. Girl, you're really good at tying people up. Where did you learn it? Asking for advice, Princess Royal, Lu Xiaoxiao looked at the crisscrossing ropes on his body. He tried to move in the carriage but he accidentally fell onto the ground. Don't worry. I won't strip you naked and parade you on the streets. Su Wan smiled at Lu Xiaoxiao comfortingly. Before Lu Xiaoxiao could sigh in relief, Su Wan continued, Bai Lu, change the route to the moat. Let's take Master Lu to take a shower. Lu Xiaoxiao, damn, can I say vulgarities? Princess Royal, actually, I am really playing with you. Woo woo. Woo woo. Before Lu Xiaoxiao could finish his explanation, Su Wan, who was sitting at the side, flipped her hand and sealed his mute acupuncture point. Lu Xiaoxiao was speechless. Go. Chapter 293. Beside the moat, the weeds were green and the spring flowers were fragrant. She could even see groups of wild ducks swimming in the river. Princess Royal, look at the grass and birds flying around. The spring sunshine is beautiful. You should go for a walk in the suburbs or go to the Peach Blossom Valley outside the capital to look at the peach blossoms. What's so fun about the moat? Lu Xiaoxiao's voice came from beneath Su Wan's feet. She smiled and lowered her head to look at a certain someone who was tied up like a dumpling by her feet. She raised her hand and touched her smooth chin thoughtfully. Lu Xiaoxiao, your mouth is really made for being a businessman. You really know how to talk. Unfortunately, I won't fall for it. Saying this, Su Wan's gaze gradually turned cold. You should know my temper. Everyone who goes against me won't have a good ending. Saying this, Su Wan gestured to Bai Lu, send Master Lu into the water to cool off. Yes. Bai Lu had disliked Lu Xiaoxiao a long time ago. Hearing Su Wan's order, she immediately kicked Lu Xiaoxiao from the shore into the water. With a plop sound, Lu Xiaoxiao, who was tied up and unable to struggle, could only sink into the water. Su Wan stared at the water and counted the time in her heart. 30 breaths later, Su Wan's gaze froze. Bai Lu. Yes. Bai Lu knew what Su Wan meant. She used her qinggong to step on the surface of the water. Then she slashed the sword at her waist, causing the water surface to tremble. Lu Xiaoxiao's body was also shaken out of the water. That's right. That's how amazing martial arts was. Bai Lu grabbed Lu Xiaoxiao's wet collar and tossed him onto the grass again. Lu Xiaoxiao's swollen face had started to turn pale. He was unconscious and it seemed like he wasn't breathing anymore. Your Highness. Bai Lu knelt down and checked Lu Xiaoxiao's breathing. Her expression immediately turned serious. Su Wan smiled carelessly. If he's dead, then just toss him back into the moat. Tie him up with a rock and destroy the evidence. Bai Lu was speechless. Ahem. At this moment, a certain someone who was pretending to be dead on the ground couldn't help but spit out a few mouthfuls of water from the moat. Fuck, this water was simply too disgusting. Lu Xiaoxiao slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were empty at first, but after a long while, he seemed to have gathered his thoughts and stared blankly at Su Wan and Bai Lu standing in front of him. I'm still alive. Lu Xiaoxiao moved on the ground. The rope on his body was wet and seemed to have tightened. Eldest princess. Lu Xiaoxiao lifted his eyes and looked pitifully at Su Wan. Let's go, Jadefall. Su Wan lowered her eyes and muttered. Bai Lu quickly followed behind her. Eldest princess. Lu Xiaoxiao called her again, but her footsteps didn't stop. Lu Xiaoxiao, fuck, who can untie this young master? Ah. That night, the princess palace. Su Wan was drafting a memorial in her study. While writing, she furrowed her brows. Lu Xiaoxiao and Lu Xian's faces kept flashing through her mind. Everyone knew that Xiang Lu couldn't practice martial arts, but today, Su-won clearly noticed Lu Xian's hand shape and the thin callus on his palm. That was definitely a hand that held a sword, not a hand that held a brush. As for Lu Xiaoxiao, because Lu Xiaoxiao's performance was exactly the same as the Lu Xiaoxiao in the plot that Su-won was familiar with. There were no flaws, but it was also the biggest flaw. After writing the memorial, Su-won closed her eyes and leaned against the back of the chair. She was going to fight Su-man head-on tomorrow. Su-won naturally wasn't afraid of Su-man at all. She just felt that Su-man had too many men. Right now, there were 3 who were famous. One was in love with each other and one was secretly in love with her. Separating them one by one was a huge waste of time. Thankfully, her identity as the eldest princess in this world was pretty useful. This way, she wasn't in a hurry to complete the mission. The next morning. The morning court meeting was the same as usual. Nothing major happened. Just as Su-man was about to leave, Su-won wearing a phoenix gown suddenly smiled and took a step forward. "Your Majesty, I have something to report." Saying this, Su-won took out a memorial from her sleeves. "Your Majesty, please take a look." Su-man paused. She narrowed her eyes and smiled at Su-won. "Give me Imperial Sister's memorial." "I'll take a look." "Yes." The attendant immediately bent over and took the memorial from Su-won's hands, handing it to Su-man. Su-man opened the memorial and her expression froze. This. Su-won's memorial was naturally a request for Su-man to accept Yu Qing into the palace. Seeing the contents, a few thoughts flashed through Su-man's mind. "Imperial Sister, come with me to the Imperial study and we can discuss this in detail. What do you think?" "Oh." Su-won smiled enchantingly hearing Su-man's words. "Yu Qing came from my residence. Everyone in the capital can see his talent. Right now, everyone knows that he and Your Majesty are in love. As his master, it's not too much for me to ask Your Majesty for the position of an imperial husband for him, right? Your Majesty, do you still need to consider such a simple matter?" Saying this, Su-won stared intently at Su-man's eyes. "Could it be that Your Majesty doesn't like Yu Qing?" Before Su-man could react, the officials in the court couldn't help but whisper to each other. Everyone naturally knew about Her Majesty's flirtatious nature. But no one expected the eldest princess to be willing to ask for the position of an imperial husband for Yu Qing. According to Wanfeng country's rules, every empress could only have 3 husbands and 4 attendants. Right now, Her Majesty already had 1 husband and 2 attendants. Although the remaining positions were empty, Her Majesty was still young. She still had time to fill up the harem. "Imperial Sister, you're wrong." Su-man also reacted at this time. She closed the memorial and looked at Su-won indifferently. "I do admire Master Yu's talent, but I don't know what you think. Although I am the emperor, I can't force others to do something they don't want to do, right?" Su-won nodded. "Indeed. It's rare for 2 people to be in love with each other. Your Majesty, please reconsider." "I won't say anything else." Su-won's expression darkened and she silently retreated. Lu Xian had been paying attention to Su-won's expression in the crowd. Thinking of what she said before, a couple for life. Lu Xian's heart moved. Could it be that what the eldest princess said that day was true? Countless thoughts flashed through Lu Xian's mind, but in the end, he suppressed them all. After the court was dismissed, everyone went their separate ways. Su-won continued to walk proudly at the front. This time, the people behind her looked at her with complicated gazes. "Cousin, what do you think the eldest princess is trying to do this time?" Qi Shuyuan purposely pulled Feng Wuchen to the back, her tone a bit suspicious. "Who knows? Maybe, the eldest princess really wants to help them. Didn't you say that women who fall in love are idiots?" Feng Wuchen's gaze landed on Qi Shuyuan's face. Shuyuan, if you don't experience it yourself, there are some feelings that outsiders might never be able to understand. Do you understand? Love. Chapter 294. In the morning, the news of the Princess Royal personally proposing marriage for Master Yu to the Emperor had spread throughout the entire capital under Su Wan's instructions. This caused the Princess Royal's arrogant and cold-blooded image to become bitter. No matter how strong a woman was, she would still get hurt. Su Wan was naturally satisfied with the rumors. That's right. This time, she wanted to establish herself as the most bitter and infatuated woman in the world. As the saying goes, true knowledge comes from comparison. They were both noble and powerful. This time, Su Wan wanted to marry someone in this world and form a family. She wanted to let Su Man's men see what a loving couple was and what it meant to grow old together with her son. Of course, Su Wan had to deal with the mischievous General Su first. Your Highness, Master Yu is here. At this time, Bai Lu quickly walked into Su Wan's study and said in a low voice. Su Wan smiled. She knew that Yu Qing would come uninvited. Invite him in. It's not like he hasn't been here before. Su Wan sneered and leaned against the couch. Not long later, Yu Qing appeared in front of Su Wan. He wore a pure white robe that contrasted with his snow-white complexion. It was nothing more than pleasing to the eyes. Princess Royal. Yu Qing lifted his sleeves and bowed elegantly at Su Wan. Yu Qing, you're here. Su Wan wore a sorrowful expression. You didn't dare to appear these past few days. Did you really think that I would send someone to kill you? Saying this, Su Wan slowly stood up. Right now, she was wearing a wide-sleeved outfit. She didn't have the arrogance that she had in the court. She looked a bit more delicate. A complicated expression flickered through Yu Qing's clear eyes hearing Su Wan's words. Indeed, he thought that he understood the Princess Royal's personality, but he guessed wrong this time. Sigh. Seeing that Yu Qing didn't say anything, Su Wan sighed bitterly. I always thought that you understood me the most in this world. Unfortunately, the truth proved that I was wrong. Why do you think I'm trying so hard to fight for power? I'm already the noble Princess Royal. I'm under one person and above tens of thousands of people. Is there anything in this world that I, Su Wan, can't use? I want to give the best in the world to the person I love. I want him to stand at the highest point in the world with me. I want him to become the highest man in the world. That's all, but no one understands me. Princess Royal, Yu Qing's expression also changed hearing this. Even though Su Man treated Yu Qing really well and Yu Qing admired her because of her talent, Su Man had never confessed to Yu Qing with such deep feelings. Forget it. Su Wan waved her hands and interrupted Yu Qing's words. Maybe we really aren't fated. Yu Qing, this is all I can do for you. After you enter the palace, live well with Her Majesty. Saying this, Su Wan turned around without hesitation, her back facing Yu Qing. Su Wan. Yu Qing hesitated but still called out Su Wan's name. This name had been deeply engraved in his heart. Ever since he fell in love with Su Man, Su Wan's figure had become fainter and fainter in his heart. But today, after interacting with her again, Yu Qing vaguely recalled many things in the past. They had been sweet and blissful before. The past seemed to be still vivid in his mind. Sorry. Yu Qing looked down and his tone was really deep. Ha! Su Wan chuckled softly. I don't need your sorry. Yu Qing, really. I don't need these 3 words, not even in this lifetime. Yu Qing clenched his fists tightly but then loosened them helplessly. Although his heart ached and wavered for a moment, he knew that he loved Su Man. It had to be Su Man, Princess Royal, thank you for fulfilling my wish. I, Yu Qing, will never forget your friendship. I'll be leaving now. Saying this, Yu Qing lowered his head and left. A long while after Yu Qing left, Su Wan slowly turned around, a mocking expression flashing past her face. People said that there were many scumbags since ancient times. The ancients didn't lie to me. You're just changing your love for someone else and you're making it so bitter. People who didn't know better would think that I, Su Wan, was trying to break them up. Not long after Yu Qing left, Bai Lu entered Su Wan's bedroom again. Your Highness, you're letting him go just like that. Let him go. Su Wan smiled faintly. It's a good thing that he and Her Majesty got together. My fragile heart has been hurt. I don't want to believe in love anymore. How about I just find someone to marry? Bai Lu was speechless. Your Highness, you've changed too quickly. Let me reflect for a while. Su Wan smiled, seeing Bai Lu standing there in a daze. From the conversation just now, Su Wan was sure that Yu Qing wasn't Su Rui. If General Su heard her confession to another man and he could still endure it, then he wouldn't be Su Rui. Therefore, Su Wan had a rough idea of General Su's identity now. There was only that person. Whether or not it was him, she'd find out tonight. Spread the news that I'm disheartened and planning on marrying Lu Xiaoxiao. Emin, you only need to let one person know about this. Saying this, Su Wan calmly said a name. Bai Lu froze hearing the name, but she still nodded quickly. This servant knows what to do. Saying this, she turned around and left to do her work. With such an efficient, skilled, and beautiful female subordinate, the feeling was really good. After Bai Lu left, Su Wan laid on her embroidered couch again. Su Rui, I know you're there. Since you've hidden yourself so well, I'll take the initiative this time to lure the snake out at night, the princess residence. After Su Wan showered and changed her clothes, she dismissed all the servants. Then she blew out all the candles in the room and sat on the bed, bored, waiting for the general. It was a spring night and the wind was still strong. When the cold wind blew into the room, Su Wan's gaze flickered. Right as she was about to get up, she was hugged by a pair of strong arms. Who allowed you to marry Lu Xiaoxiao? His deep voice carried obvious dissatisfaction. Oh. Su Wan smiled and looked up. In the darkness, she saw the man's sharp silhouette. She couldn't help but caress his face. Why aren't you acting? Humph, you're pretty good at acting, General Su. Su Rui froze hearing Su Wan's words. I've been trying my best to weaken my presence. You shouldn't have noticed. That's right. These few days, General Su had been diligently acting out his role. He didn't even look at Su Wan. Then the question was, how did Su Wan notice General Su? When you know someone well, you'll be familiar with their every weakness. Even if he disguised himself flawlessly, he would still be exposed because of that weakness. Then, what's General Su's attribute? Answer, a maniac who loves his wife. If he doesn't show off his love, he'll die. Then the question was, since he loves his wife, why would he put a man in his wife's room? He even brought aphrodisiac incense. Pass. She had to be the first to pass Lu Xiaoxiao. Su Wan was indeed the first to rule out Lu Xiaoxiao, but then she purposely helped Lu Xiaoxiao at Chufeng restaurant and even teased him afterwards. This was because Su Wan was certain that even if Su Rui didn't follow her personally, with his personality, he would definitely send people to monitor her. If he knew that she was in contact with Lu Xiaoxiao and then released the news that she was going to marry Lu Xiaoxiao, even if he knew it was a trap, he'd still appear without hesitation. That's right. She had him in her grasp. Okay. On the bed, Su Wan felt Su Rui's hands tightening around her. She couldn't help but lean against his chest. Military officer, let's talk about your identity first. How did you change from Feng Wuxiang to Feng Wuchen? Don't tell me that Feng Wuchen also has a crush on Su Man, General Su's stomach was full of tears when he mentioned this. He was fine when he entered the mission, but when he connected his mind to Feng Wuxiang's body, they found out that the other party was dead and he couldn't enter his body. Damn. That wasn't how the plot was written. At that time, the headquarters sent a message. Apparently, the logistics department made a mistake when calculating the plot. They told Su Rui to choose to withdraw from the mission or choose another male supporting role. At that time, Feng Wuxiang's body, no, his corpse. His corpse was placed in the morning hall and Feng Wuchen was the only one guarding the coffin. This was definitely a choice, right? General Su, who had no choice, became Feng Wuchen. After his appearance changed, Su Rui suddenly had an idea. If he disguised himself, would Su Wan still recognize him? Would she be able to find him? As a result, General Su's plan and Su Xiaowan's help to complete the search game began. Why didn't you suspect Lu Xian? After Su Rui told her what happened, he couldn't help but ask Su Wan. Because of the logistics department's mistake, there were some deviations in the plot they received. Lu Xian's true identity was that he was a hidden expert. Su Rui knew this, so he purposely weakened himself so that Su Wan's gaze would shift to Lu Xian. General Su was suffering. He had to do everything he could to hide himself, but he also hoped that Su Wan could find him. He was conflicted. Lu Xian is more suspicious than Lu Xiaoxiao, but I've tested him. Su Wan smiled, remembering how she purposely stepped into the Lu family's trap. If Lu Xian was Su Rui, even if he was certain that Su Wan wouldn't be fine, even if he knew that he shouldn't make a move, General Su would definitely make a move. Because he was Su Rui. How could he watch Su Wan encounter danger in front of him? Even if the danger wasn't a threat to her. Lu Xiaoxiao wasn't, Lu Xian wasn't, and Yu Qing wasn't either. Then the only suspect was Feng Wuchen. Chapter 295. The next day, Bai Lu came to serve Su Wan at her usual time. But the moment she entered, she saw the military officer's cold expression. Ah! Bai Lu's gaze flickered, but she still bowed to Su Rui. Hello, military officer. Knowing that Bai Lu was Su Wan's confidant, Su Rui glanced at her faintly. Don't wake her up to go to court. Let her sleep a bit more. It wasn't a big deal to the Princess Royal if she didn't go to court. The royal family was just that willful. Bai Lu, not going to court. What exactly did you do to my master? Seeing Bai Lu looking at him suspiciously and vigilantly, Su Rui's expression darkened. Why are you looking at me? Haven't you seen people chatting under the blankets? She sleeps late. Don't disturb her. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Bai Lu's expression changed when she felt Su Rui's cold murderous intent. She was Su Wan's most useful assistant and also the leader of the imperial family's secret guards. She had killed countless people over the years, so she understood the murderous intent and aura of others the best. Because of this, Bai Lu's expression changed drastically. Although it was just for a moment, the military officer's murderous intent made her hair stand on end. Just that aura alone was enough to make her hair stand on end. There was an endless danger. Feng Wuchen, just how much did you hide? By the time Bai Lu came back to her senses, Su Rui had already left. It was okay if the Princess Royal didn't go to court, but as a professional spy, the military officer still had to go to court. Not long after Su Rui left, Su Wan also woke up from the bed. She habitually raised her hand and touched her side. Although it was empty, it was still warm. Bai Lu, Su Wan sat up and called softly. Bai Lu immediately appeared in front of Su Wan. Your Highness, you're awake. Su-won nodded. What time is it? Why didn't you wake me up? Bai Lu immediately knelt on one knee. It's this servant's negligence. Just now, the military officer forbade me from waking you up. This servant was confused. Your Highness, please punish me. Forget it. Su-won waved her hand, that's good. In a while, Ben Gong will write a memorial. You can enter the palace and hand it to His Majesty. Just say that Ben Gong has caught a cold and is bedridden. I need to recuperate. Yes. Oh right. Su-won looked at Bai Lu. What else did Feng Wuchen say before he left? Ah. Bai Lu was astonished again. What did the Grand Commandant say before he left? Damn, she was distracted at that time and didn't notice. Thinking of this, Bai Lu immediately blamed herself. Your Highness, this servant didn't hear you, please Your Highness. Seeing that Bai Lu was about to kneel again, Su-won immediately lifted her hand to support her. Okay. You're making me dizzy from kneeling here and there. Help me change first. Ever since the eldest princess suddenly handed over a memorial yesterday, the eldest princess had not appeared in court today. Regarding this matter, the civil and military officials were all silently criticizing her. Not long after, news came from the eldest princess' palace that the eldest princess had caught a cold and was bedridden. She was still full of energy yesterday. Why did she suddenly fall sick today? Was it because of Master Yu and Her Majesty's marriage? Sigh. What was love in the world? It was just a promise of life and death. Su-won's illness immediately made her the center of attention in the capital. A large group of noble ladies and officials all rushed to the eldest princess' palace to express their condolences. No matter if it was the eldest princess faction or Her Majesty's faction, since the eldest princess was sick, everyone should express their concern. Even Qi Shuyuan, who didn't get along with Su-won, brought a large amount of supplements to visit Su-won. Of course, Qi Shuyuan mainly probed and visited. On the bed, Su-won's face was deathly pale and she looked haggard. Speaking of, how could a person change so much in a day? Was she faking it? It really didn't seem like it. Your Highness, do you feel better? Qi Shuyuan sat by Su-won's bed and asked softly. I've made Prime Minister Qi worry. I'm actually fine. Su-won leaned against the headboard and forced a smile at Qi Shuyuan. Feeling the reluctance in Su-won's smile, Qi Shuyuan looked deeply at Su-won. Your Highness, did you suddenly fall sick because of Master Yu's matter? Although everyone guessed that Su-won's illness was related to Yu Qing, only Qi Shuyuan would ask such a straightforward question. Hearing Qi Shuyuan's question, Su-won looked down and smiled bitterly. Prime Minister Qi, do you think that I'm stupid? She was. Although Qi Shuyuan thought this way, she obviously wouldn't say it out loud. Princess Eldest, you're peerless and have a high status. What kind of man can't you have? If you like talented men who know how to play the zither, I'll send you a few tomorrow. Everyone sighed and felt sad for the eldest princess' infatuation, but Su-man and Qi Shuyuan didn't think the same. No matter if Su-won's infatuation was real or fake, she clearly wanted to make things difficult for Her Majesty by falling sick at this time. Right now, the eldest princess was sick because of a man. Plus, Her Majesty was going to marry this man. If news of this spread to the people, what would the people think? Most people like to sympathize with the weak. Su-won cleverly weakened herself so that she could stand on the moral high ground at any time. This was the most brilliant aspect of her. Hearing Qi Shuyuan's words, Su-won smiled. Her smile was unusually complicated and hard to explain. Prime Minister Qi, have you ever truly liked someone? Qi Shuyuan froze and then shook her head. What did liking someone mean? Maybe it was like how she treated her cousin. She had faint admiration and concern for him. But that was it. Prime Minister Qi, if you haven't loved someone deeply, you wouldn't know how painful it is to lose someone you love. There are thousands of people in the world. He might not be the best, but he's the one you love the most. No one can replace someone like him. Qi Shuyuan furrowed her brows. If Princess Eldest really can't bear to part with Master Yu, why did you ask Her Majesty to marry him? There's a type of love called letting go. His heart is no longer with me. I can only let go and let him find the happiness he wants. Saying this, Su Wan looked deeply at Qi Shuyuan. I know what Her Majesty is worried about. This time, I'm sincerely letting go and blessing them. Prime Minister Qi, please tell Her Majesty to let her get married in peace. Hearing Su Wan's words, Qi Shuyuan smiled and nodded. I will tell Her Majesty about Princess Eldest's words. It's getting late. Princess Eldest, rest early. I'll be leaving now. Saying this, Qi Shuyuan stood up to leave. Seeing Qi Shuyuan's figure, Su Wan couldn't help but smile. Qi Shuyuan wouldn't believe her words, and neither would Su Man. Women in Luanfeng country were just like men in ancient times. When they were high up and looked down on the world, they had long forgotten about their true feelings. Qi Shuyuan felt that feelings weren't important. But in Su Man's eyes, only outstanding men were worthy of her. She treated these men really well. Her kindness to them was love. The so-called one and only, the so-called devoted, were just a joke in their eyes. Until Qi Shuyuan's figure disappeared, Su Wan finally sat up and glanced at the screen in her room. Military officer, you've been hiding for so long. You don't want to come out and get some fresh air? Ha! Su Rui slowly walked out from behind the screen. Wife, what you said just now was really nice. I'm getting jealous. Come, say it again. Su Rui slowly walked out from behind the screen and said, Wife, what you said was really nice. Stop messing around. Su Wan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why are you jealous? Yu Qing belongs to Su Man. I'm the one who's jealous. You know what's going on with you and Qi Shuyuan. Sigh. Su Rui sighed. There's a type of love called letting go. Cousin sister is too aloof and cousin brother is also an injured person. Therefore, you and I, a love-struck man and a resentful woman, are a match made in heaven, a match made in heaven. Su Wan was speechless. You're quick to use what you learned. Chapter 296. Imperial City, Imperial Garden. Suman wore a black dragon robe and sat quietly in the corner pavilion of the garden, listening to Yu Qing's heavenly music. Lu Luo wore a sapphire blue robe and sat next to her with a smile. Your Majesty. Qi Shuyuan saw the three of them being lovey-dovey and harmonious when she came in. She was used to this scene. Shuyuan, you're back. Seeing Qi Shuyuan, Suman's gaze flickered. She lifted her hand and dismissed all the guards and palace maids in the pavilion. Prime Minister Qi, sit. Seeing Qi Shuyuan walking over, Lu Luo smiled and gestured for her to sit. Qi Shuyuan nodded at him and then sat across from Suman. Shuyuan, how's Imperial Sister doing? Suman's expression immediately turned serious and cautious when she asked about Su Wan. She felt that her Imperial Sister had been acting strangely these past few days, so Suman had to be on guard. Princess Royal, Qi Shuyuan hesitated and glanced at Yu Qing, who was still playing the zither. Princess Royal seems to be really sick. Plus, she told this official to bring a message to Your Majesty, saying that she wants to bless you and master you. Ding! The sound of the zither stopped abruptly, and the strings broke. Yu Qing. Suman suddenly stood up nervously and walked to Yu Qing's side. She grabbed his hands and exclaimed, "Are you okay? You didn't get hurt, right? Why were you so careless?" "I'm fine. Your Majesty, don't be too nervous. It's just a pity about the zither." Yu Qing lowered his eyes and looked at the broken strings pitifully. His tone was filled with disappointment. "As long as you're fine, I can order people to find a better zither for you." Suman held Yu Qing's hands and smiled at him dotingly. As the Empress, she naturally could give the best to her man. Lu Luo continued to sit in his original position and stared at Suman and Yu Qing's hands. In the end, he turned his gaze away without a trace. After Suman comforted Yu Qing, she returned to Qi Shuyuan's side. "Shuyuan, how much do you think Imperial Sister is telling the truth? Princess Royal has always been very scheming. Even if she's willing to do it for a man. Well, I mean even if she's really trapped by love, she won't give up her ambition for many years. Your Majesty, you have to be careful." Hearing Qi Shuyuan's words, Suman nodded. "Yu Qing." She turned around and looked at Yu Qing gently. "Now that the entire city knows about Royal Sister's matter, I'm afraid I won't be able to marry you right now. You won't be angry with me, right?" "How could that be?" Yu Qing looked down. "I'm on Her Majesty's side. Naturally, Her Majesty comes first." "Yes, I know you are very considerate and considerate." Hearing Yu Qing's reply, Suman's mood immediately improved. "Shuyuan, it's time for lunch. You should stay too. Eat with me. I want to discuss Feng family with you." Feng clan. Hearing Suman mention Feng clan, Qi Shuyuan froze. "Your Majesty, do you want to? Ever since Feng Wuxuang died, Madame Feng has been prejudiced against me. As for Feng Wuqin, I really don't dare to trust him easily. But if you're willing to marry him, then he'll naturally be loyal to me in the future." "Marry Feng Wuqin?" Qi Shuyuan froze. She did have a good impression of her cousin, and he was one of the few men who caught Qi Shuyuan's eyes. But her cousin was much more domineering than normal men. Normal wives really couldn't suppress such a powerful ruler. Seeing Qi Shuyuan's hesitation, Suman couldn't help but stare at her seriously. "What, Shuyuan? Do you not like Feng Wuqin? Although he isn't peerless in his generation, he's talented and skilled in both literature and martial arts. He's one of the best matches in the Luanfeng country. Cousin is naturally very good. But I don't want to get married so quickly." Qi Shuyuan hesitated for a moment before replying softly. "You." Hearing her reply, Suman laughed heartily. "You are already the right Prime Minister. Now you should enjoy your life and spread the leaves for your Qi family. In the future, give birth to a few more daughters and give our Luanfeng country a few more war goddesses." "Okay." In the end, Qi Shuyuan nodded. Maybe she really should get married, and her cousin was the best candidate. Princess residence. Today, there was an endless stream of people coming and going to visit her. Finally, the sky turned dark. The princess residence was planning on closing the doors, but someone came uninvited. "Your Highness, Prime Minister Lu is here." Lu Xian. Before Su Wan could reply, Su Rui waved his hand impolitely. "I won't see him, I won't see him. Send him away." "Bai Lu, military officer, you're treating the princess residence as your Feng family, right?" "Your Highness." Bai Lu stood still and continued to wait for Su Wan's orders. "It's too late. Tell Prime Minister Lu to go back and come back tomorrow." "Yes." Bai Lu obediently retreated after receiving Su Wan's instructions. Su Rui couldn't help but twitch his lips. "Tomorrow? You're really going to see him tomorrow?" "Why not? He's our strongest ally." ally. But it was a man. This wasn't good news. In short, General Su was really unhappy. Wife, I'm telling you. That Lu Xian isn't a good person. Be careful of him. Oh. Hearing General Su's words, Su Wan couldn't help but nod. I know. He's a big boss. Not only is he a villain boss, but he's also a maniac. Su Rui received the new plot from the headquarters, so he naturally knew about Lu Xian's character. He lived in a women's rights society, but he was a male chauvinist. Men like him had extreme personalities. The better Lu Xian hid it, the more it proved that his heart was dark and extreme. He was definitely a patient with a deep well of ice. Su Wan was speechless. So there was actually someone who could be called the ice of a deep well by General Su. It sure wasn't easy. Su Wan wouldn't look down on Lu Xian's danger index, but she wasn't worried at all. Even if he really goes crazy, I'm not afraid of him. I still have you, right? Of course. So he was being praised by his wife. General Su felt great. Wife, it's really late. I'm not going back. I'll stay here for the night. Saying this, Su Rui took off his shoes and laid on the bed. The bed in the princess residence was really comfortable, but who knew when he could openly come and go here? General Su's heart was very vexed. It seemed like he had to settle Qi Shuyuan as soon as possible. Seeing Su Rui lying on the bed lazily, Su Wan couldn't help but cover him with the blanket. Go to sleep first. When Bai Lu comes back, I'll. Su Wan hadn't finished speaking when Su Rui, who was lying on the bed, suddenly raised his arms and pulled Su Wan in front of him. Without saying anything further, he started to nibble. No, that's called kissing. When Bai Lu came back from outside, she saw the two of them on the bed, entangling themselves intimately. Bai Lu was speechless. Military officer is so fierce. Wait, what I'm looking at seems to be wrong. Chapter 297. The next day, it was noon when Lu Xian came to the princess residence. According to the rules, Su Wan was bedridden. As a male official, Lu Xian couldn't directly visit her in her bedroom. Therefore, Lu Xian was arranged to stay in the guest room of the inner courtyard. After waiting for a while, Su Wan finally arrived with Bai Lu's help. Just 2 days had passed, but Su Wan's face looked really haggard and pale. Princess Royal. Seeing Su Wan, Lu Xian immediately stood up and bowed to her. You don't have to be so polite. Sit. Su Wan said softly, her voice a bit hoarse. Lu Xian sat back in his seat, his gaze landing on Su Wan's face again. Princess Royal, are you feeling better? I'm fine. I'm not that delicate. Su Wan smiled faintly at Lu Xian. I have to thank you for coming to visit me. You really are a considerate person. This is what I should do. Lu Xian nodded at Su Wan and then said in a low voice, Her Majesty has decided to postpone her and Yu Qing's wedding date. Princess Royal, do you know about this? Oh. Su Wan froze hearing Lu Xian's words, her face turning paler. Why? Could it be because of me? Princess Royal, why do you ask when you already know the answer? Lu Xian stared at Su Wan's eyes, wanting to see a flaw in her gaze. Unfortunately, Su Wan's eyes were deep and there was a flash of anxiety between her brows. No. I can't let Her Majesty do this. Saying this, Su Wan struggled to stand up. Bai Lu. Hurry and bring my phoenix gown over. Tell someone to prepare a carriage. I'm going to the palace to see the Emperor immediately. Your Highness. Your body. Bai Lu hesitated hearing Su Wan's words. Lu Xian also stood up and looked at Su Wan inquiringly. Princess Royal, why do you have to do this? You, presumptuous. Su Wan's gaze turned cold and she stared at Lu Xian. I don't need anyone to tell me what to do. Bai Lu, hurry and prepare. Yes. Bai Lu left. Lu Xian looked at the sickly Su Wan and his usually gentle face changed. Princess Royal, was it worth it? Just for Yu Qing. To Lu Xian, that kind of man wasn't even worth mentioning. Whether it's worth it or not, that's my business. I don't seek to be acknowledged by the world, I only seek to be at ease. Peace of mind. Lu Xian looked at Su Wan in shock. He felt like he really needed to get to know this Princess Royal again. By the time Su Wan's carriage entered the palace, it was already afternoon. After entering the imperial city, Su Wan stumbled all the way to the imperial study. At this time, Su Man was still handling official business in the imperial study. Seeing Su Wan suddenly barging in, Su Man froze. Imperial sister, why are you here? Why don't you marry Yu Qing? Su Wan stared at Su Man's eyes and asked word by word. Imperial sister, you're still sick. How can we have the mood to hold a wedding? Su Man couldn't guess Su Wan's thoughts, so she could only reply perfunctorily and wait for her to make the first move. I'm fine now. Hurry up and get married. My residence has prepared a huge dowry for Yu Qing. As Su Wan spoke, she took out a token from her bosom. The word Su was engraved on the back of the token while the word secret was blood red on the front. This was the Imperial family's secret guards transfer order. It was the same as the military's tiger seal. Seeing the order was the same as seeing the person. Su Man's pupils couldn't help but contract when she saw the token. This was the glory that Su Wan had risked her life to obtain from the cruel competition of the Imperial family. The Imperial family's secret guards had always been controlled by the strongest person in the Imperial family. The person in charge of the secret guards right now was Su Wan. Your Majesty, haven't you always wanted this? I'll give it to you. Saying this, Su Wan tossed the token that was envied by countless people onto the jade floor of the Imperial study like she was throwing trash. Is this dowry heavy enough? Your Majesty, are you going to marry him or not? Su Man's expression slowly turned complicated. She even started suspecting that the woman in front of her might not be her imperial sister. How could the ambitious imperial sister throw away her biggest trump card for a man? This wasn't Su Wan's personality. Although she was suspicious, Su Man knew that the token was real. Imperial sister, you're really willing to give up the Imperial family's secret guards? Su Man asked tentatively. Su Wan smiled in disdain. Other than Bai Lu, I'm taking him away. You can do whatever you want with the rest. You're willing. Su Man's gaze flickered, his sharp gaze fixated on Su Wan. Why wouldn't I be willing? What I'm most unwilling to has already been taken away by your Majesty. What use do I have for these things? Even if I possess monstrous power and influence, there is no one else who can share it with me. Saying this, Su Wan smiled at Su Man charmingly. Your Majesty, you only have one chance. Don't wait for me to regret it. Are you going to accept this token or not? I'm accepting it. No matter if Su Wan was telling the truth or not, Su Man wouldn't miss this heaven-sent opportunity. Okay. Su Wan smiled seeing that Su Man answered happily. She waved her sleeves and turned around without hesitation, leaving the imperial study in large strides. The sunlight was still a bit dazzling. Su Wan was dazzled by the sunlight when she walked out. She lifted her hand to cover her forehead. By the time she put her hand down, she saw Yu Qing standing nearby. He was still wearing a pure white robe. His sleeves fluttered as he stood there, staring at her with a complicated expression. Capital, Feng Residence's backyard. Because Feng Wuxiang had been weak since he was young, he couldn't go out. Chapter 298. Su Man and Yu Qing's wedding date was set at the end of the month. Right now, the entire capital was immersed in celebration because of Her Majesty's wedding. Su Wan's cold also recovered after a period of time. Right now, she had stepped down as the leader of the imperial family's secret guards. Even the civil and military officials rarely saw the Princess Royal during the morning court meeting. For a moment, the officials in the court couldn't figure out Su Wan's true attitude. The officials on the Princess Royal's side were even more hidden, not saying a word. At this time, there were rumors that the Princess Royal Highness was hurt by love and might be planning to retire. But in reality, the situation was like this. Su Rui, wife, you're going back on your move again. No, you have to let me kiss you. Su Wan, when did I go back on my move? Who saw it? Bai Lu, come and judge for me. Bai Lu was speechless. Master, this servant is blind. You guys show off every day. Even my diamond-studded eyes are blind. The loser kisses once, and the winner kisses twice. Are you guys playing chess? Have you guys considered my feelings when you're showing off your love so openly? As the former leader of the imperial family's secret guards, Bai Lu always thought that it was enough for her to follow Her Highness for the rest of her life. She didn't need a man, let alone love. But now, Bai Lu just wanted to say to the heavens, please give me a man and let me leave this bitter single life, Your Highness. Just as Su Wan and Su Rui were arguing over whether to kiss her once or twice, how bored are you guys? The steward of the Princess Royal residence quickly walked over to Su Wan. The steward of the Princess Mansion quickly walked to the front of Su Wan. Your Highness, the Shangfu Bureau has delivered your newly custom-made robe. Do you want to send it to the bedroom? Amen, send it over. Su Wan waved her hands and then glanced at Su Rui. Okay, I'm not playing anymore. The gown is done. I'm just waiting for Su Man and Yu Qing's wedding ceremony. Right. In the blink of an eye, it was almost the end of the month. Su Rui couldn't help but look at Su Wan. You ordered the gown. Are you planning on going to the imperial city to attend Her Majesty's wedding ceremony? No. Su Wan shook her head. I just want to sing the last scene well. As a high-quality movie empress, I have to do my best. Fine. You're a 3-time movie empress. Su Wan didn't have to go to Her Majesty's wedding, but as a military officer, Su Rui had to go. Ever since he rejected Qi Shuiyuan, Su Man had a grudge against the Feng family. But this didn't matter. General Su really didn't care about a small Wanfeng country. It was said that General Lu Changge, who had been guarding the border, would also return to the capital for Her Majesty's wedding. This time, all the targets had arrived. Sigh, there were too many targets in this world. This made General Su speechless. After sending Bai Lu away, Su Wan felt even happier. She really was the best master in the world. She knew that Bai Lu was lonely, so she threw her the male lead to play. Amen. It'd be best if the two of them played and someone died. That way, the princess residence would be even more lively. Can Bai Lu succeed? Su Wan watched Bai Lu's departing figure and couldn't help but ask. The girl was loyal to Su Wan, but Su Rui could tell that Bai Lu was a simple-minded girl. She was definitely slow in reacting to feelings. She definitely won't be able to do it if you want her to silently care for you like how she chases after snow. But if you want her to force herself on you, she can do it. She's skilled at it. Cough. Of course, Su Wan was referring to Bai Lu's attitude when she was carrying out missions as an imperial guard. This girl never knew how to be soft. She only knew how to be hard. The reason why Su Wan chose Bai Lu was because she was inspired by General Su in the past. Male leads were all high-quality stocks. Good things shouldn't flow to outsiders therefore, before a certain male lead could return to the capital, he was schemed against by Master Su and his heart felt cold. Of course, this method could only be used to deal with people like Lu Chang'e or Li Xiao who weren't close to the Empress. If it was Lu Luo or Yu Qing, they would use another method. Yu Qing, thinking of Yu Qing, Su Wan couldn't help but narrow her eyes. She put in a lot of effort for this scene. Right now, she was just lacking the last strong medicine. Chapter 299. April 29th, Su Man's wedding. The Empress's wedding was unprecedentedly grand. According to Wanfeng country's rules, the Empress's wedding ceremony had to start in the morning and end at dusk. As one of the people involved in the wedding ceremony, Yu Qing was at the Princess Royal residence right now. That's right. He used to be from the Princess Royal residence, so the Princess Royal residence counted as his maiden home. Although Su Man and Su Wan didn't get along, Su Wan had handed over her authority as a secret imperial guard. As for her insistence on sending Yu Qing off to get married, Su Man naturally agreed. Therefore, the carriage from the imperial city would come directly to the Princess Royal residence to pick up the bride. Actually, Su Man was testing Su Wan. If Su Wan really had some schemes up her sleeves, she should have revealed her foxtail by now, right? At this time, the morning light had broken and the entire Princess Royal residence was lit up in a festive red. Yu Qing was wearing a bright red official robe and sitting quietly in his room when he suddenly heard the melodious sound of a zither. Hearing the melancholic music, Yu Qing's heart moved. He subconsciously stood up and pushed the door open. The spring breeze brushed past his face and the petals fell in profusion. Pure white pear blossoms were blooming all over the branches. Under that piece of snow white, Su Wan, who was wearing a bright red phoenix gown, had her makeup on and her phoenix eyes were slightly drooping. She was playing the zither under the tree. That grief-stricken zither sound gradually diffused from the backyard of the Princess Fu, reverberating on the quiet long street. This song was too melancholic. Plus, Yu Qing had never heard anyone play this song before. For a moment, he was a bit mesmerized by it. When the music ended, the spring breeze blew. When Yu Qing snapped out of his trance, he saw the beauty staring at him under the pear tree. This was the first time he thought that Su Wan was really beautiful. She shed off her ostentatiousness, her arrogance, her coldness, and sharpness. All that was left was the purest beauty. Pure white pear flower petals fell from the sky and landed on Su Wan's shoulders. She walked over to Yu Qing as if she didn't feel anything. "Do you like this song?" "I do." Yu Qing hesitated before saying with difficulty. He did like this song, but it made his heart ache. "I've never heard this song before." "Did you write it, Princess Royal?" "No." Su Wan shook her head. "This is a song that a hermit made for his lover. The song is called Phoenix Seeking Phoenix. Leisurely looking southeast, a song of a phoenix seeking a phoenix." A phoenix seeking for a phoenix, Yu Qing's gaze flickered. The name is good and the song is good. It's just that the mood the princess played is too sorrowful. Ha! Su Wan smiled faintly hearing Yu Qing's words. She lifted her hand and took out a beautiful purple brocade pouch. "I won't be entering the palace to participate in today's ceremony. This is my gift to you. Accept it. From now on, you are no longer a member of my Princess Royal residence." Saying this, Su Wan stuffed the brocade pouch into Yu Qing's hands with trembling fingers. Then she quickly turned around. "Su Wan." Yu Qing couldn't help but call her name again. Why? Just like when he saw her outside the imperial study that day, he didn't understand why she did all this. Su Wan didn't turn around hearing Yu Qing's words. She slowly lifted her hand to catch the falling petals and said in a low voice, "The Empress has always been in power in Wanfeng country. It's common for nobles to have multiple husbands and 4 attendants. My father was the former Empress's male attendant. He had always loved the former Empress deeply. Even if the former Empress didn't have any feelings for him, he still couldn't help but love her. In the end, he was even willing to die for her. I still remember when I was 11 years old. My father passed away peacefully. I stood in front of his sickbed and screamed at him. Why? Why was he so stupid? He said it was because of love. Because of love. Ha! Su Wan sneered, tears welling up in her eyes. She turned around and looked at Yu Qing. Is that love? Just like how Lu Luo loves Su Man and you also love Su Man. What about Su Man? She loves Lu Luo and she also loves you. She might even love more people. Is that really love? I don't want this kind of love. I don't want this kind of life. Ever since I was young, the former Empress didn't like me because I wasn't the daughter of the man she loved. Therefore, I should be an abandoned child. Yu Qing, tell me, what did I do wrong? I, Su Wan, just want to hold hands with the person I love and grow old together. Why is it that even the heavens aren't willing to fulfill such a lowly wish? In the end, Su Wan's voice started to choke. Su Wan, Yu Qing took a step forward. He had never seen Su Wan this weak. Princess Royal used to be the synonym for killing and cold-blooded. She was high and mighty, she was scheming. Everyone thought that she wanted the whole world, but in the end, she only wanted a lover. Yu Qing's heart couldn't help but ache. For her and also for the feelings he lost. Love. What did it mean to be deeply ingrained into one's bones and never change until death? Su Wan. Yu Qing subconsciously lifted his hand, wanting to wipe away the tears on Su Wan's fair face. However, Su Wan dodged his hand as if she was electrocuted. Don't touch me and don't treat me well. I've already given up on you. Saying this, Su Wan looked at the immortal-like man in front of her. From today onwards, you're Su Man's man. And I, Su Wan, will find a man that belongs to me one day. I don't want him to be rich or powerful. I don't want him to be skilled in martial arts. As long as he loves me, I'm willing to go through water and tread on fire for him. Saying this, Su Wan lifted her right hand and the dragon-seeking dagger slid out of her sleeve. A silver light flashed and a long strip of Su Wan's bright red sleeve was cut off. Su Wan tossed the scarlet satin into the air, falling on the ground along with the white flower petals. Yu Qing, from now onwards, I, Su Wan, will sever all ties with you. Saying this, Su Wan put away the dagger and turned to leave without any reluctance. Despite the tear stains on her face, she was still elegant when she turned around, as if she had become the noble and arrogant Princess Royal from before. Yu Qing stood there until Su Wan's figure disappeared. He froze for a moment and then suddenly bent down to pick up the scarlet satin that Su Wan had tossed away. I'm willing to be with the one I love and never part with. Yu Qing couldn't help but grip the scarlet satin tightly. He lifted his face slightly and slowly closed his eyes. The spring breeze blew gently and it was as if someone was whispering in his ears. There are trees in the mountains and branches in the trees. My heart pleases the gentleman, but the gentleman doesn't know. When night fell, the bustling imperial city finally quietened down. The red candles flickered and the hibiscus tent warmed up. Inside the new room in the back palace, Su Man and Yu Qing had just crossed cups. Seeing the man in front of her who had few desires, Su Man couldn't help but ask in a good mood, Yu Qing, do you have any wishes? You're my man. As long as it's something you want, I can satisfy it. Yu Qing smiled faintly hearing Su Man's words. I don't have anything I want. Your Majesty, you don't have to go through so much trouble. It's impossible for people to have no desires. Even saints have wishes. Yu Qing, tell me. What do you want? Su Man liked to see Yu Qing's elegant and aloof appearance, so she couldn't help but act coquettishly towards him. What do I want? Yu Qing froze and subconsciously blurted out, I'm willing to be with the one I love and never part with. Su Man couldn't help but smile charmingly. Yu Qing, so you know how to say sweet nothings too. You're my woman now. I'll be with you until we grow old. You don't have to worry. Chapter 300. In the Imperial City, in the bridal chamber. In the Princess Royal residence, the hibiscus tent was warm. Wife. Su Rui twirled his fingers around Su Wan's hair. You made the brocade pouch that you gave Yu Qing today. Su Wan answered in a daze, you like it. I'll have Nanny Zhang embroider a few more for you tomorrow. Her skills are really good. If we sell it at Bright Embroidery Workshop, it'll probably be worth 5 taels of silver. General Su was speechless. So the thing that Master Yu treasured his entire life was only worth 5 taels of silver. Okay, people who didn't know the truth were lucky too. The next day, Su Wan and Su Rui woke up really late. Her Majesty's wedding was over for 3 days. The officials in the capital also welcomed a rare 3-day holiday. Luing. Su Wan got up and couldn't help but call out softly. Luing was just unreliable. Suddenly, she missed Bai Lu a lot, Your Highness. At this moment, a slender figure rushed in like the wind. Ah! Bai Lu. Su Wan froze seeing Bai Lu's face. When did you come back? Your Highness, this servant came back last night. Because it was too late, this servant didn't dare to disturb you and the military officer. Bai Lu immediately answered respectfully. Oh. Then what about Lu Chang'e? Su Wan asked with a smile while tidying up her clothes. Bai Lu couldn't help but smile foolishly hearing Su Wan mention General Lu's name. General went back to the residence to pack his luggage. He'll come to the Princess Royal residence in the afternoon to propose. Su Wan lifted her brows. Is he proposing or proposing? This, Bai Lu froze hearing Su Wan's question. This servant doesn't know. I'll follow your orders. It wasn't wrong for Lu Chang'e to propose with his identity, but if Su Wan didn't agree, then he could only propose. Speaking of which, Su Wan had only heard of Lu Chang'e's name but never seen him. Today, she wanted to see just what kind of person he was. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, Su Rui ate at the princess residence and then returned to the great military office alone. Right now, only the confidants in the princess residence knew about his relationship with Su Wan. Even Madame Feng didn't know about it in the Feng family. However, after such a long time, General Su didn't mind waiting for the last few days. Just after noon, Lu Chang'e dressed neatly and brought the visiting card to the entrance of the Princess Royal residence. As a direct descendant of Suman, this was the first time Lu Chang'e visited the Princess Royal residence as a private person. General Lu's thoughts were very complicated. Life was like a drama, there were no spoilers. Before Lu Chang'e returned to the capital this time, he only wanted to attend Her Majesty's wedding and then stay in the capital for a few more days to accompany his family. Who knew that he would be ambushed by Bai Lu on his way back? When Bai Lu was mentioned, Lu Chang'e's emotions became even more complicated. He was a great general who had led millions of soldiers and killed countless people, yet he had been tricked by a woman in the end. Ahem, of course, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Lu Chang'e was a simple person. He was the type of person who was honest and simple. If you treat me well, I'll treat you well too. Now that Bai Lu was his woman, General Lu felt that he had to take responsibility because he was a man, right? However, when he arrived at the entrance of the Princess Royal residence, Lu Chang'e felt apprehensive. Even if he was willing to marry Bai Lu, would the Princess Royal agree? According to Wanfeng country's rules, Bai Lu was a third-rank female official. Although her official rank was lower than his, she had the Princess Royal support. Plus, she was a woman. If the Princess Royal didn't allow her to marry, did he, a great general, have to marry her? Thinking of this, Lu Chang'e felt conflicted. In the end, he still walked through the entrance of the Princess Royal residence, reception room. Su Wan wore a dark purple palace dress and smiled at the nervous Lu Chang'e. General Lu, you're joking with me, right? You're asking to marry Bai Lu. What right do you have to mention the word marry in front of me? Lu Chang'e's expression changed hearing Su Wan's words. The Princess Royal had been arrogant and mean for a long time. He was mentally prepared for this. Your Highness. Lu Chang'e slowly stood up and looked at Su Wan seriously. If your Highness is willing to help me, this official will naturally be grateful. If your Highness feels that this isn't appropriate, then, this official is willing to marry you. Oh. Su Wan's phoenix eyes flickered with a trace of a smile. Lu Chang'e, you're the general of the imperial court. As a man who has fought on the battlefield, are you really willing to lower yourself to marry someone of lower status? There's no need to put myself down. This official is willing to take responsibility for Bai Lu. We're both together. What's the difference between marrying or marrying? Lu Chang'e was very clear about this matter. Lu Chang'e, if you marry Bai Lu, I'm afraid His Majesty will never trust you again. Have you thought about this? Su Wan stared at Lu Chang'e's eyes and continued to ask. Her Majesty, Lu Chang'e hesitated. I joined the battlefield to serve the country. Even if I don't become a general in the future, it's the same as being a soldier. Okay. Su Wan stood up and clapped her hands. General Lu, Bai Lu didn't misjudge you. I'm also relieved to let her marry you. Actually, you're right. As long as the two of them are together and have the same thoughts, there's no difference between marrying or marrying. Your Highness. Lu Chang'e was surprised to see Su Wan agree to marry Bai Lu to him so readily. Of course, he had just returned to the capital and hadn't heard about the Princess Royal's tragic love story. Later on, he found out about Su Wan and Yu Qing. He couldn't help but sigh. Princess Royal was a sentimental person. Everyone had wronged her in the past. After the news of Bai Lu and Lu Chang'e getting married spread from the Princess Royal residence, everyone in the capital's officialdom was stunned. After all, Lu Chang'e was the emperor's direct descendant. Now that he was marrying the Princess Royal's person, there was a huge mystery behind this. Su Man, who had just gotten married, was originally feeling proud of herself. But after hearing that Lu Chang'e was going to marry Bai Lu, she immediately felt terrible. Putting aside the fact that she admired and liked Lu Chang'e, even if he was a normal general, she couldn't let him fall into Su Wan's camp. Because of this, Su Man summoned Lu Chang'e to the palace several times. She wanted to dispel Lu Chang'e's thoughts of marrying Bai Lu, but Lu Chang'e was too upright and stubborn. No matter what Su Man said, he wouldn't give up on the marriage. In the end, in order to make Su Man feel at ease, Lu Chang'e took off his official robes in the imperial study and resigned. Voila. When Yu Qing walked into Qingning Palace, Su Man was throwing a teacup on the ground with a dark expression. A bunch of useless people. Your Majesty, please calm down. A group of servants knelt in the palace. Su Man wanted to continue getting angry, but seeing Yu Qing come in, she waved her hands and had them leave. Your Majesty, are you still angry about General Lu? Yu Qing walked forward and looked at Su Man gently. Hearing his words, Su-man couldn't help but sneer. Ha! I don't know what the Princess Royal Residence did to Lu Chang'e, but he's willing to resign to marry Bai Lu. He really doesn't know what's good for him. It's a waste that I've admired him so much. I really want to see how he can go to the Princess Royal Residence to ask for her hand in marriage when he has nothing at all. Su-man predicted that this was all part of Su-won's plot. If Lu Chang'e was useless, would she still marry her confidant, Bai Lu, to him? Chapter 301. Yu Qing was shocked to hear Su-man's words. In order to get married, Lu Chang'e was willing to give up his official position. Men's status in Luanfeng country was generally lower than women. He was a general, so he barely had the right to marry Bai Lu. If he lost everything, would Bai Lu still be willing to marry him? Even if she was willing, would the Princess Royal be willing? Yu Qing's gaze became dazed thinking of Su-won. If it was Su-won, she might. Your Majesty, what if the Princess Royal is really willing? Yu Qing suddenly asked. Impossible. Su-man subconsciously blurted out, how could Su-won marry her confidant to a commoner? No matter how skilled Lu Chang'e is in martial arts, he's just a piece of trash without the official position I gave him. So what if he's skilled in martial arts? Luanfeng country's women all practiced martial arts. There were plenty of people who were skilled in martial arts. Lu Chang'e was a genius at leading troops, but after leaving the military camp, he was no different from ordinary men. Su-man believed that she was the only one in the world who could give Lu Chang'e the life he wanted. If he resigned today, he would definitely regret it and come back to beg her. He definitely would. A piece of trash without any value. Yu Qing's gaze darkened hearing Su-man's words. The imperial city was filled with scheming and deceiving people. Anyone with no value would be kicked away. Then, what was he in Her Majesty's heart? Was he the spoils of war that she snatched from the Princess Royal? Su-man sent people to spread the news of Lu Chang'e's resignation. The entire capital knew about this. Lu family wasn't a noble family. The reason why the family could barely survive in the capital was because of Lu Chang'e's efforts on the battlefield. Now that he resigned, Lu family's situation returned to normal. Thankfully, Lu Chang'e's parents and his sister Lu Yuqing didn't care about fame and fortune. The Lu family didn't care much about this. The two elders were just afraid that the Princess Royal Residence would go back on their words. No, Her Highness isn't that kind of person. Although they were on opposing sides in the past, Lu Chang'e had a lot of confidence in her this time. That's right. Lu Yuqing couldn't help but lift her brows. Princess Royal values friendship the most. Everyone in the capital knows that. She's definitely not that kind of person who goes back on her word. The people in the capital had a better opinion of Su-won. However, the officials in the imperial court didn't think highly of Lu Chang'e and Bai Lu's marriage. In the officialdom, it would be difficult to move forward without a black heart. Lu Xiang, what do you think of this matter? Lu Xian was famous for his foresight and scheming. He was also quite popular in the court, especially among the male officials. He was already a leading figure of his generation. Looking at the expectant and nervous eyes of the surrounding male officials, Lu Xian just smiled faintly. There will be news from the princess's mansion soon. Why are you so anxious? It's not like you are getting married. Actually, men who could enter the imperial court and become officials all had ambitions. Now that something like this had happened to Lu Chang'e, it was natural for them to be worried. While everyone was waiting, the news from the Princess Royal's residence finally came. This time, when Lu Chang'e married Bai Lu, the wedding date would not change. The entire wedding would be arranged by the Princess Royal. Her only request was that no matter what Lu Chang'e's future was, he would not let Bai Lu down. The two of them, of one heart, hand in hand for a lifetime. Once the news came out, the people in the capital clapped and cheered. They knew that the Princess Royal was a sincere person. In the entire capital, there was no one more affectionate and righteous than the Princess Royal. The officials were speechless. This didn't make sense. Their faces hurt. Could it be that the Princess Royal's personality had changed because of the heartache? Did she see through the world of mortals and no longer seek fame and fortune? The 15th of the 5th month, an auspicious day, suitable for marriage. This was the second time the Princess Royal's residence held a wedding. This time, it was more grand and joyous than the last. Bai Lu had been by Su Wan's side since young. Naturally, Su Wan wouldn't be careless with her marriage. She held it according to the highest standards for noble ladies in the capital. After Bai Lu left the Princess Royal's residence, Su Wan even personally helped her onto the sedan chair. At that moment, Bai Lu couldn't help but cry. "Your Highness, this servant can't serve you anymore. This servant can't bear to part with your Highness." "Silly girl, don't cry. You can come back often in the future." Su Wan couldn't help but lift her hand to wipe away Bai Lu's tears. Just as the two were reluctant to part, countless arrows suddenly fell from the sky. A large group of assassins appeared in front of the Princess Royal's residence in broad daylight. "Your Highness, be careful." Bai Lu was the first to react. She protected Su Wan behind her and subconsciously wanted to pull out the sword at her waist. Nanny, she was wearing a wedding gown without a sword. At this moment, the assassins that suddenly appeared had already surrounded the princess mansion. Originally, a large group of people had gathered outside the princess mansion to watch the show. At this moment, the situation suddenly changed. Everyone panicked and screamed. Many innocent people died under the cold arrows. Fresh blood immediately dyed the entrance of the princess mansion red. Seriously, they were bullying people too much. A cold glint flickered in Su Wan's eyes. Then she pulled out her sword and led the guards of the Princess Royal's residence to fight against the assassins. The news of a large group of assassins trying to assassinate the Princess Royal had spread throughout the capital. Lu Chang'e, who was waiting at home to pick up his bride, immediately rushed to the Princess Royal's residence after hearing the news. Right now, the streets of the capital were in chaos. "Master, master!" Lu Ning panted as he followed behind Lu Xiaoxiao, shouting, "Master, are you crazy? You don't know martial arts. Why are you going to the Princess Royal's residence? Why do you care?" "I'm going to collect the Princess Royal's corpse." "Can't I?" Lu Ning was speechless. "No wonder no one loves you. If I were the Princess Royal, I definitely wouldn't care about your sharp tongue." When Lu Xiaoxiao used all his strength to enter the crowd near the Princess Royal's residence, he saw Su Wan being surrounded and attacked by a large group of assassins. So dangerous. Lu Xiaoxiao's gaze immediately tensed up. He looked around, preparing to find a suitable weapon in case of emergencies. Suddenly, a silver sword pierced through the air. Everyone subconsciously narrowed their eyes. By the time they opened their eyes again, they saw Feng Wuchen in a black robe, his sword stained with blood. He was carrying Su Wan in the air with one hand. "Your Highness, are you okay?" A cold voice rang in Su Wan's ears. "I'm fine." Su Wan shook her head. At this time, two figures suddenly charged at Su Wan's back with swords in their hands. "Su Wan, be careful." Lu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but shout. He grabbed a wooden plank and rushed up. By the time he stumbled out, blood splattered in the air. Feng Wuchen used his body to block the sneak attack for Su Wan, but his back was dyed red with blood. Although he didn't know where these assassins came from, they unexpectedly satisfied General Su's wish to be a hero and save the beauty. In order to make the scene more shocking, Su Rui, who could have easily dodged just now, used his back to take 2 swords. Chapter 302. Seeing that Su Rui was injured, although she knew that he did it on purpose, Su Wan's gaze still turned cold. Did he really think that she, Su Wan, was a vegetarian? These people dared to be so impudent in front of the princess royal residence. The two fell from the sky. Su Wan turned around and supported Su Rui. Military officer, don't move around. This Empress, Your Highness. Su Rui smiled and brushed Su Wan's hand away. Don't dirty your hands with these useless soldiers. While speaking, Su Rui's hand tightly grasped the long sword in his hand and an unparalleled sword aura immediately soared to the sky. In an instant, sand and pebbles flew and murderous intent filled the air. When Lu Chang'e rushed to the Princess Royal Residence's entrance, he saw corpses on the ground. The bright blood dyed the bluestone ground red. Because of the battle, Bai Lu's wedding dress was a bit tattered. Her arm was even wounded. Bai Lu. Seeing that Bai Lu was injured, Lu Chang'e immediately jumped off the horse and ran to her. What happened? Where's Her Highness? Her Highness is fine, but the military officer got seriously injured while protecting her. Saying this, Bai Lu stared at the Princess Royal Residence's entrance with a deep gaze. Not long after, the door opened. Su Wan had changed into palace attire and walked out with a cold expression. Your Highness. The people still gathered on the streets saw Su Wan and all respectfully called her name. Su Wan's phoenix eyes froze. She glanced at the people present and then pulled out her sword. With a clang, the tip of the sword pierced deeply into the stone ground that was dripping with blood. Dear fellow villagers, today is supposed to be a joyous occasion for the princess's residence, but it has become like this. Not only has the auspicious time for the wedding been delayed, but many innocent people have also died in vain. Today, for all those who have been implicated, I will pay for their funeral expenses and resettlement expenses. Of course, don't worry. This Empress will definitely seek justice for everyone. No one will die in vain. No blood can be shed in vain. I will swear with my sword today that one day, I will find the culprit and make them pay 10 times the price. Blood must be paid with blood. Blood must be paid with blood. The guards of the princess residence immediately followed suit. An eye for an eye. The onlookers were all indignant. They followed the guards and shouted again and again. Some of the people who had lost their loved ones were so emotional that their eyes turned red. Your Highness. Bai Lu suddenly knelt in front of Su Wan. Your Highness, this subordinate won't marry you. This subordinate will also avenge our brothers and sisters who died in vain. Jade Fall. Su Wan's gaze froze and she looked at Su Wan with slight astonishment. Princess Royal. At this moment, Lu Chang'e also knelt on one knee with Bai Lu. If Your Highness doesn't mind, Chang'e is willing to follow Your Highness. After we take revenge for everyone, Bai Lu and I will get married. Nonsense. Su Wan forcefully waved her sleeves, her phoenix eyes cold. Today, the person behind the scenes wants to ruin your marriage. Ben Gong will not let him have his way. Everyone, stop crying. Today is still a day of great joy. I will step on blood and send Bai Lu off to get married. Saying this, Su Wan clapped her hands and Lu Ying immediately walked out of the princess residence. She held a tray and on the tray was a bright red cloak. Su Wan picked up the cloak and draped it over Bai Lu's shoulders. Bai Lu, if you and Chang'e are willing to follow me, I welcome you at any time. But today is the day you get married. You must get married peacefully. With this Empress here, no one in this world can ruin this marriage. Someone, play music. Following Su Wan's order, joyous sounds immediately rang outside the princess's residence. The wedding procession continued to move forward. Lu Chang'e, who was wearing a bright red robe, rode his horse and followed them from the princess royal residence to the Lu residence. The commoners followed along the long street for 10 miles. They wanted to witness the wedding with their own eyes. This was the first time in Luanfeng country's history that a third-rank female official was getting married. This wedding was dyed red with blood, shocking the entire capital and also the commoners who lived at the bottom of society. From now on, the title, Princess Royal, was no longer an untouchable royal family. Instead, it was a synonym for affection and righteousness in the eyes of the commoners. It was night and the lights were on. Feng Residence's backyard. By the time Qi Shuyuan hurried over to the Feng family from the imperial city, it was already late at night. She came to Feng Wuchen's bedroom under the Feng family's servant's guidance. Before she even entered, she smelled the strong scent of medicinal herbs. Qi Shuyuan couldn't help but speed up. When she entered the room, she froze. Feng Wuchen was lying on the bed, his entire back exposed. There were 2 intersecting sword marks on his back, looking really sinister. At this time, Su Wan was sitting on the bedside, holding the Jinchuang ointment and carefully applying it on him. Hearing footsteps, Su Wan looked up and saw Qi Shuyuan at the door. She couldn't help but smile. "Prime Minister Qi, you're here." Your Highness. I'm here to see my cousin." Su Wan gestured for Qi Shuyuan to keep quiet. "He just drank the medicine and fell asleep. I'll help him change the medicine on his back. You can sit anywhere you want." Qi Shuyuan was speechless. Why did she feel like she was in the princess residence? Wasn't this the Feng family? "Your Highness, cousin, is he okay?" Seeing that Feng Wuchen didn't move at all, as if he was really asleep, Qi Shuyuan couldn't help but soften her voice. She naturally knew what happened outside the princess royal residence in the morning. But Feng Wuchen had been placed in the princess royal residence during the day, so it wasn't convenient for her to see him. Plus, the empress had hurriedly summoned her to the palace at night. Qi Shuyuan had rushed over after she finished everything. Although she and her cousin parted on bad terms at the Feng family, Qi Shuyuan still cared about their relationship. She was more nervous than anyone after finding out that something had happened to Feng Wuchen. Seeing Qi Shuyuan's sincere expression of concern, Su Wan sighed softly. "The imperial doctor has seen him. His life isn't in danger, but he probably needs to rest in bed for a while." "That's good." Hearing that Feng Wuchen was fine, Qi Shuyuan couldn't help but sigh in relief. Right now, Su Wan had already applied medicine for Su Rui. She picked up a white cloth and skillfully bandaged Su Rui's wound. Seeing that Su Wan wasn't unfamiliar with Feng Wuchen at all, Qi Shuyuan felt a trace of discomfort. It was as if her favorite toy was suddenly snatched away. "Your Highness, let me do it." Qi Shuyuan took a step forward, wanting to help, but Su Wan coldly rejected her. "Prime Minister Qi, I won't trouble you. Wuchen doesn't like outsiders touching him." "Outsiders?" Qi Shuyuan froze in midair. She grew up with her cousin and they were childhood sweethearts. When did she become an outsider? "Your Highness, men and women shouldn't touch each other. For the sake of your reputation." Chapter 303. Wuchen saved my life. From now on, he's my man. I'm serving my man. Who dares to say anything? Hearing Su Wan's words, Qi Shuyuan's expression changed. She subconsciously glanced at Feng Wuchen on the bed. Then her gaze landed on Su Wan's face. "Princess Royal, you're wrong. Shuyuan remembers that cousin once said that he would never marry anyone in this life. Even if the other party was a noble lady, he would still marry her and enter the Feng family's door. Therefore, if you want to marry cousin, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. Oh. Su Wan couldn't help but laugh. Who said that I'm going to marry Feng Wuchen? I'm going to marry him. What? Qi Shu Yuan was completely stunned. Princess Royal, you're not joking, right? Since the founding of Wanfeng country, Bai Lu was the first noble lady to get married. This had already angered Her Majesty. Now, the Princess Royal was going to risk the world's condemnation and marry a man. Even if that man was a military officer, this was definitely a stain to the imperial power. Princess Royal, Her Majesty won't let you do this. Qi Shu Yuan had to put on a serious expression. Her Majesty. Qi Shu Yuan, are you using Her Majesty to pressure me? Su Wan slowly got up and walked to Qi Shu Yuan step by step. Getting married is a joyous occasion. Prime Minister Qi, you don't need to worry about me. When it's time for my wedding with the military officer, I'll naturally send you an invitation. It's getting late. Prime Minister Qi, you should go back now, right? Seeing that Su Wan was asking her to leave, Qi Shu Yuan gritted her teeth and then left unwillingly. Until she walked far away did Su Wan slowly turn to look at Su Rui, who was pretending to be asleep. Your good cousin left. Get up. Ha. Su Rui sat up and smiled awkwardly. Cousin is right. There's no need for that. Wife, you're not jealous, are you? How could I be that childish? Su Wan turned her face to the side. Seeing that she wouldn't admit it no matter what, Su Rui's gaze flashed and he immediately changed the topic. Do you have any clues as to the identity of the assassin this time? Not yet, but those two won't be able to escape. Su Wan heard Su Rui's question and immediately became serious. If I'm not wrong, it should be that person. Killing with a borrowed knife. Killing two birds with one stone. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rui's gaze couldn't help but turn cold. She dared to send people to assassinate his wife. She really didn't know how to write the word death, right? He knows how to use the 36 stratagems, but can't we do the same? Su Wan glanced at Su Rui and the two people looked at each other and smiled. Since you want to kill us with a borrowed knife, then we'll beat you at your own game. The next day, the people of Jingdo were still discussing the wedding ceremony that had been stained with blood the day before. Guesses as to who the mastermind was had already begun to circulate. Who in the capital dared to make a move against the eldest princess? Who in the capital had the strongest conflict with the eldest princess? And whose interests would be affected by the Princess Royal's marriage? Everything was silently pointing to one person. That person was the current empress. Imperial City, Imperial Palace. Su Man's expression was dark as she listened to Hong Shuang's report. She clenched her fists tightly. Su Wan agreeing to marry Bai Lu to Lu Chang'e was indeed a slap to Her Majesty's face. But Su Man wasn't stupid enough to send people to assassinate Su Wan at this time and shed all pretense of cordiality with her. This was definitely an unwise move. This matter was not done by Su Man, but in the entire capital, it was very difficult to find another person with such strength and so many elite deaths worn. Unless it was Su Wan herself. After dismissing Hong Shuang, Su Man stood up and paced around the hall a few times. In the end, she brought people to Lu Luo's palace. At this time, Lu Luo was still practicing his sword. Seeing Su Man's figure, Lu Luo immediately put away his sword and quickly walked to Su Man. Your Majesty, why are you here? Lu Luo understood Su Man the most. According to what he knew of Su Man's habits, she should be handling government affairs at this time every day. Lu Luo, I have something to discuss with you. While walking into the palace, Su Man told Lu Luo his suspicions. Other than practicing martial arts, Lu Luo was also well-versed in various military strategies. His personality was really calm and steady. He was the best person to talk to. Lu Luo pondered for a moment hearing Su Man's guess. I heard that many people died in the Princess Royal residence yesterday. Unfortunately, I don't know much about the situation in the Princess Royal residence. I can't immediately tell if the people who died were the Princess Royal's trusted subordinates or if they were pulled here to make up the numbers. Su Man's thoughts moved. Yu Qing came from the Princess Royal residence. He should be able to tell, right? Your Majesty. Lu Luo's gaze darkened. Your Majesty, are you planning on letting Yu Qing help? Yeah. Su Man glanced at Lu Luo and smiled. Lu Luo, you're not jealous of Yu Qing, right? Lu Luo shook his head hearing Su Man's teasing words. I'm not jealous. I just don't believe him. He came from the Princess Royal residence. Since Su Wan could let him get close to Your Majesty once, there will be a second time. Your Majesty, how can you tell when he's real and when he's fake? Yu Qing's elegant face flashed through his mind. Su Man couldn't help but smile. No one can lie to me. Lu Luo, you have to believe in my abilities. Since Your Majesty knows, then I'll just treat it as Lu Luo being a vile person. Lu Luo looked down and smiled bitterly. Su Man's expression darkened seeing that he seemed to be a bit angry. She had been high and mighty since she was young. Those who obeyed her would prosper and those who opposed her would perish. Who dared to give Su Man a hard time in the entire imperial city? Lu Luo was the first and only one. Was it because she treated him too well? Thinking of this, Su Man couldn't help but sneer. It's been a good spring recently. I'm going to stay in the temporary imperial residence for a while. Coincidentally, the zither I found for Yu Qing is ready. I'm taking him out this time. I'll leave the matters of the imperial harem to you. With that, Su Man coldly stood up, turned around, and left without hesitation. Such a big thing happened in the capital, yet Su Man chose to go to the temporary imperial residence at this time. She was just luring the mastermind behind the scenes to make the next move. Watching her leave without hesitation, Lu Luo absent-mindedly recalled that they were newlyweds not long ago. At that time, he thought that he found the love of his life. Even if he had to give up everything and give up all of his mother's expectations for him, it was worth it. But now... Lu Luo smiled bitterly. Was it worth it or not? Who could say for sure? When the rumors and slanders in the capital were at their peak, the news of Su Man's departure from the capital gradually spread. Was Her Majesty trying to clear her name by leaving the capital at this time? Or was she purposely avoiding? Did the Princess Royal residence make any new moves after Her Majesty left the capital? When everyone's gazes were focused on Su Wan, she gave everyone a huge surprise. Princess Royal was going to get married. Once this news spread, it was even more shocking than Her Majesty's wedding. Nanny. Was the Princess Royal residence going to hold 3 happy events this spring? Chapter 304. Capital, Chufeng Restaurant. Master, who do you think Princess Royal will marry? Lu Ning saw his master sitting by the window on the 3rd floor of Chufeng Restaurant in a daze. He couldn't stand his funny master acting like an artsy young man, so he couldn't help but ask. But the moment he said this, Lu Ning wanted to slap himself. Motherfucker, your mouth. You're touching my sore spot. As expected, after hearing Lu Ning's words, Lu Xiaoxiao, who had been sitting by the window, suddenly stood up with a huge change in expression. Both his hands gripped the window frame tightly, his upper body almost sticking out of the window. Master. Master, don't do anything stupid. Lu Ning thought that Lu Xiaoxiao was going to commit suicide, so he immediately extended his arms and hugged him tightly from behind, shouting as he hugged him. Master. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why do you have to be in love with a flower? Master, master, think about our master's wife. Lu Xiaoxiao was speechless. Motherfucker, I don't know you. I definitely don't know you. After hearing Lu Ning's yelling, everyone on the third floor of Chufeng restaurant turned to look at Lu Xiaoxiao. Right now, Lu Xiaoxiao really wanted to die. Damn it, I wasn't doing very well in the capital, and now I'm even more embarrassed. Let go. Lu Xiaoxiao struggled free from Lu Ning's hands. I'm just looking at the scenery. What do you think I'm going to do? Are you dumb? I'm going to commit suicide for that person. I'm not sick in the head. Yes, yes. Master, you're not sick. I'm the one who's sick in the head. Seeing that Lu Xiaoxiao wasn't going to commit suicide, Lu Ning finally sighed in relief. Then he looked outside the window. There wasn't much scenery to see, right? Naturally, there wasn't any enchanting scenery outside. Lu Xiaoxiao just saw the Princess Royal Residence's carriage. If he wasn't wrong, the man sitting in the carriage was Feng Wuchen, right? Lu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but think back to that day at the entrance of the Princess Royal Residence. That one person and one sword were invincible. That day, everyone present was shocked. Lu Xiaoxiao was also shocked. He never thought that a person could be so ridiculously strong. He couldn't learn that kind of strength in his lifetime. So the person Su Wan wanted to marry was Feng Wuchen. Only such a powerful man was worthy of her, wasn't it? For a moment, Lu Xiaoxiao felt a bit bitter in his heart. But in the blink of an eye, he forced himself to throw that bitterness to the back of his mind. What was so great about it? No matter how strong a man was, didn't he still have to marry? If you have the ability, then marry the eldest princess. Alright, actually, Lu Xiaoxiao grew up with this kind of grand ambition. When he was young, he once followed his mother into the palace. The first time he saw the Princess Royal, she was still a little lowly. He fell in love with her at first sight. Then, without knowing the immensity of heaven and earth, he prepared to marry the Princess Royal. He prepared for 10 years, and then, the eldest princess is finally going to marry someone else. Damn, what a sad love story. Lu Ning, let's go back. Lu Xiaoxiao stood up and quietly turned to go downstairs. Looking at his young master's lonely back, Lu Ning also sighed. Actually, the young master was a good person and treated his servants politely. Unfortunately, he was not born with the talent to learn and practice martial arts. This was not something he could decide. Princess Royal Residence. Su Wan and Su Rui sat in the carriage and entered the courtyard before getting off. Although the outside world knew that Su Wan was getting married, they didn't know that the other party was Feng Wuchen. Only Madame Feng knew this news. Madame Feng, who was used to all sorts of situations, froze in the beginning when she heard that Su Wan was going to marry into the Feng family. In the end, she held on to Su Wan's hand tightly, only letting go after a while. Back then, Madame Feng and the former empress were close sisters. Because her youngest son liked Su Man, Madame Feng also liked Su Man back then. Naturally, she disliked Su Wan as well. But the world was unpredictable. Back then, how could she have thought that her youngest son would die because of Su Man and her eldest son could marry the Princess Royal, Su Wan? Fate really made a fool out of people. I think I saw Lu Xiaoxiao when I passed by Chufeng restaurant just now. Su Rui couldn't help but exclaim softly after getting off the carriage. Oh. Su Wan froze. She wasn't as sensitive as Su Rui, so she didn't notice Lu Xiaoxiao. Thinking of Lu Xiaoxiao, Su Wan couldn't help but lament that the world was unpredictable. Two people who both wanted to love but they missed each other because they never crossed paths. If there was a next life, would they be able to continue their relationship? Don't mention him. Su Wan lowered her gaze and pulled Su Rui's hand. Lu Ying has already custom-made the gown for the wedding. I'll take you back to your room to try it on. Okay. While the Princess Royal residence was nervously and mysteriously preparing for the wedding, Su Man naturally received news that Su Wan was getting married. After hearing this, Su Man froze too. Then she glanced at Yu Qing, who was also frozen. Yu Qing, what do you think Su Wan wants to do? Who does she want to marry? Can you guess? It can't be Lu Xiaoxiao, right? At this point, Su Man couldn't help but smile. But there wasn't a trace of a smile on Yu Qing's face. His slender fingers subconsciously grasped the beautiful brocade pouch on his waist. Inside was the red silk that Su Wan cut with the dragon-seeking dagger. From today onwards, you're Su Man's man. And I, Su Wan, will find a man that belongs to me one day. I don't want him to be rich or powerful. I don't want him to be skilled in martial arts. As long as he loves me, I'm willing to go through fire and water for him. That day was the day of his wedding. Every word Su Wan said was clearly imprinted in Yu Qing's mind. At that time, he felt sorry for her. Of course, it was just pity and heartache. But thinking of this now, Yu Qing felt something else. Su Wan was going to get married to someone else. Together with that person for the rest of their lives, a pair of people. Yu Qing suddenly felt a bit envious and jealous. He regretted it. His fingers gripped the brocade pouch tightly, his fingertips sinking into his flesh. People clearly yearned for something they couldn't get in their entire lives. As for the things that they had but lost and would never come back, they would become the deepest scars in their lives. Yu Qing. Su Man couldn't help but call him again, seeing that Yu Qing wasn't saying anything. Hm. Yu Qing snapped out of his trance and glanced at Su Man with a pale face. Your Majesty, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to go rest first. Saying this, Yu Qing stood up and rushed out the door in a hurry. Su Man couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Yu Qing, do you really still have her in your heart? Leng Yi. Su Man called in a low voice. A black figure immediately floated out like a ghost. Your Majesty. Follow Yu Qing and monitor him. Chapter 305. At the end of May in the capital, the sun was warm and the flowers were blooming. Recently, the people in the capital had been living quite comfortably. Everyone talked about the Princess Royal the most during their free time. That's right. In the capital, you could ignore Her Majesty, Xiang Lu, and Xiang Qi, but how could you not know the Princess Royal? Recently, they heard that the Princess Royal was getting married. All the men in the capital expressed that their hearts were broken. For a noble, beautiful, affectionate, and approachable royal family like the Princess Royal, whoever could marry her must have accumulated 8 lifetimes worth of good fortune. Just when everyone was enthusiastically discussing who the princess was going to marry, the Feng family, which had always been low-key, suddenly began to buy wedding supplies. The mistress of the Feng family, who had not come out for a long time, wore her official robe for the first time and personally went to the houses of the royal family to deliver the wedding invitations from the Feng family. The eldest son of the Feng family, Feng Wuqian, was going to marry the Princess Royal on June 16th. The nobles who received the invitation were dumbfounded. Madame Feng, are you sure you're not joking? Marry the Princess Royal. That's the Princess Royal. Madame Feng straightened her back and smiled faintly at the nobles' disbelief. Everyone, remember to arrive early. Finally, the Princess Royal's marriage was revealed. The truth caused the entire capital to be excited. From marrying a noble lady from her own residence to marrying a man of a lower status. Now, the Princess Royal was actually marrying a man of a lower status. This was the beginning of a new era for Wanfeng country. When Qi Shu Yuan heard this, even though she was prepared, she still froze for a long time. Her cousin said that he was going to marry a noble lady and he really did it. Plus, the one marrying him was the #1 noble lady in Wanfeng country. She was below one but above tens of thousands of people. No noble lady was more precious than the Princess Royal. Yet, such a precious person was willing to marry a man of a lower status. She wasn't the master of the wife. She was just an ordinary wife. In the past, Qi Shu Yuan would have thought that this was a fantasy. There was still half a month before their wedding. Ever since Madame Feng announced their wedding, the people were eagerly waiting for the Princess Royal and great military officer Feng to come out and show off to everyone. Of course, General Su would never disappoint everyone because he was currently on sick leave. Although his injuries had healed a long time ago, in order to avoid his work, he still openly became a disabled person. Every time he went in and out of the Princess Royal residence, Su Wan would personally support him. Passerby, today, I saw Princess Royal personally helping Grand Commandant Feng onto the carriage. I'm so jealous. Passerby B, so what? I even saw the eldest princess feeding great military officer Feng in Chufeng restaurant yesterday. Noble Lady A, do you all know? It was said that it was great military officer Feng who saved the damsel in distress, so the eldest princess fell in love with him. Noble Lady B, I was there that day. Grand military officer Feng is really amazing. If I can meet such a man, I will marry him too. Noble Lady C, yeah. If the eldest princess can marry, why can't we? The Princess Royal said that she wanted to be with him for the rest of her life. How romantic! Unknowingly, the thoughts of the nobles in the capital had gradually begun to change. This was how the world was. As long as there was someone who dared to eat crabs, the others would calm down and follow suit. Su Man naturally heard about everything that happened in the capital. Knowing that Su Wan dared to break the royal family's rules and marry someone of a lower status, Su Man ordered Hong Shuang to pack up and the group hurried to the capital from the temporary imperial residence. In the end, they were ambushed by a group of assassins on their way. This group of assassins had clearly come prepared. They launched a very fierce and suicidal attack on Su Man and the others. This caused the royal guards to suffer heavy losses, and Su Man was also injured in this battle. The injured Su Man was carried by Lang Yi, and the two of them took advantage of the chaos to escape. Princess Royal's wedding was just around the corner, but His Majesty was suddenly assassinated and disappeared. When the news of Su Man's disappearance reached the capital, the people in the capital were immediately in chaos. Capital, Eldest Princess Residence. Eldest Princess. When Qi Shu Yuan anxiously arrived at the Princess Royal residence, Su Wan and Su Rui were eating dinner. Prime Minister Qi, what's the matter? Su Wan looked at Qi Shu Yuan and asked faintly. Eldest Princess, His Majesty's disappearance is out of the ordinary. This official feels that this is the same as the assassination attempt on the eldest princess. It's done by the same group of people. These people are plotting something big. Oh. Su Wan couldn't help but nod hearing Qi Shu Yuan's words. You seem to be right, but can't you see that I've been really busy lately? I'm not interested in knowing who tried to assassinate His Majesty. As for whether the person who tried to assassinate me was the mysterious person or someone else, I will find out in the future. Your Highness. Hearing Su Wan's indifferent tone, Qi Shu Yuan immediately panicked. Your Highness, are you going to watch Su family's dynasty fall into the hands of those traitors? Traitors? Who are the traitors? Where are the traitors? Su Wan smiled and put down her chopsticks. She looked at Qi Shu Yuan playfully. I've always thought that I'm a traitor in your eyes. Speaking of Su family's dynasty, I really can't do anything. Don't you know that I'm going to marry into the Feng family and that I'll be the Fengsu family in the future? Saying this, Su Wan couldn't help but smile at Su Rui. Husband, don't you think so? Su Rui nodded seriously. After we get married, I'll resign and live in seclusion. By then, we can travel the world and laugh proudly. Cousin. Qi Shu Yuan couldn't help but look at Su Rui. Cousin, didn't you work so hard to become an official in the court to serve the court? Right now, the court needs you. How can you? What about me? Su Rui looked at Qi Shu Yuan and sneered in disdain. Ha! Her Majesty is on guard against us male officials. Have you seen a military official without military power? So what if I'm a first-rank official? The dynasty doesn't need me at all. Qi Shu Yuan, you have military power. You have the military seal. If you want to save Her Majesty, go yourself. I wish you a safe journey. Qi Shu Yuan was speechless. She walked out of the Princess Royal residence absent-mindedly. Qi Shu Yuan felt like everything was unreal. Cousin, Princess Royal. Everyone was different from what she had imagined. She didn't know if Her Majesty was dead or alive. The court was in a mess. What should she do? Prime Minister Qi, a voice suddenly rang in front of Qi Shu Yuan. Qi Shu Yuan lifted her head absent-mindedly. Seeing the person in front of her, her expression was a bit surprised. Prime Minister Liu. The cultured and elegant Liu Xian stood in the night breeze. Prime Minister Qi, are you worried about Her Majesty? Liu Xian took 2 steps forward and looked at Qi Shu Yuan quietly. Do you need me to help you? Qi Shu Yuan's gaze brightened hearing Liu Xian's words.